The gun trembled in her hand as Savannah stood on the monastery stairs, blood pooling beneath her feet. "You should have stayed poor and forgotten," the woman in diamonds hissed. Adrian's voice cracked through the storm outside. "If you pull that trigger, you destroy everything." But the secret Savannah carried wasn't just the baby fighting to survive inside her womb. It was the truth about who she really was, a truth so devastating it would burn the Cross Empire to ash. 3 lives hung in the balance, 1 bullet, and the confession recording in her pocket that would either save them all or condemn her child to the same fate as her murdered mother. Welcome to a story where love, betrayal, and blood ties collide in the most unthinkable way. This is a 2-hour journey into the heart of secrets money can't bury. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and settle in, because what you're about to hear will leave you breathless. The Georgia heat pressed down on Savannah Hale like a physical weight as she stood in the dying cornfield, staring at the foreclosure notice nailed to the fence post. 29 days. That's all she had left before the bank seized everything: the farmhouse where her mother died, the land her grandfather broke his back cultivating, the only home she'd ever known. 30 years old, and this is what her life had become. Dirt under her fingernails, $53 in her checking account, and a stepmother who looked at her like a problem that needed solving. "You done feeling sorry for yourself?" Patricia's voice cut through the humid air. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, mouth set in that familiar line of disapproval. "Because I found a solution to our little problem." Savannah turned slowly, wiping sweat from her forehead. "What kind of solution?" "The kind that keeps a roof over both our heads." Patricia descended the creaking steps, her heels somehow still pristine despite the red dust coating everything else. "I've been talking to some people. Important people." The way she said "important" made Savannah's stomach twist. Patricia had always been a social climber, even when she married Savannah's father 3 months before his stroke. The man had barely been cold in the ground before Patricia started making connections. "What did you do?" Savannah asked quietly. Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I secured us a future. Next Tuesday, you're marrying Adrian Cross." The name hit Savannah like a slap. Everyone in Georgia knew the Cross family. Hell, everyone in the Southeast knew them. Real estate empire, tech investments, hotels from Atlanta to Miami. And Adrian Cross, the billionaire single dad who'd been photographed at exactly 3 public events in the past 5 years, always looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "That's not funny," Savannah said. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Patricia pulled an envelope from her purse. "The agreement's already signed. You marry him, the farm's debt disappears. You get to keep your precious childhood memories. Everybody wins." Savannah snatched the envelope, her hands shaking as she pulled out the papers. Legal letterhead, Cross Enterprises. A marriage contract dated 2 weeks ago, before Patricia had even mentioned this insanity. "You can't sell me like livestock," Savannah said, her voice rising. "I'm saving you from yourself." Patricia lit a cigarette, the flame harsh in the fading daylight. "You've been drowning for 3 years, Savannah. Ever since your mother passed. This farm is a corpse you keep trying to revive. I'm giving you a way out. I didn't ask for this. You didn't have to. That's what family does. Makes the hard choices." Patricia exhaled smoke. "Adrian Cross needs a wife for his daughter. Some stability, good PR, someone who won't embarrass him at charity galas. You need money and a future that isn't this dried-up patch of dirt. It's business." Savannah's throat tightened. "And what does he get out of buying a wife? Privacy? Control. Someone who understands this isn't about romance." Patricia's eyes went cold. "Look, you can stand here and pretend you've got options, or you can accept reality. The bank takes this place in 29 days regardless. At least this way, you walk away with something." The envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Savannah looked back at the farmhouse, peeling paint, sagging porch, her mother's wind chime still hanging by the door, silent, because even the wind seemed to have given up on this place. "I need time to think," Savannah whispered. "You've got until Sunday. After that, the offer expires." Patricia crushed her cigarette under her heel. "And Savannah? Whatever romantic notions you're entertaining, kill them now. Adrian Cross isn't looking for love. He's looking for a transaction. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She walked back to the house, leaving Savannah alone with the contract and the weight of an impossible choice. Adrian Cross stood in his downtown Atlanta office, 52 floors above the city, and felt absolutely nothing. The skyline glittered in the twilight. His reflection in the glass showed a man who looked younger than 32, dark suit perfectly tailored, expression carefully neutral. He'd mastered that look, the one that gave away nothing. The Hale girl accepted, his lawyer said behind him. Marcus Chen had been with the family for 15 years, long enough to know when not to ask questions. Contracts finalized, wedding set for Tuesday, private ceremony at the estate. Adrian nodded once. The financials? Farm's debt cleared as of this morning. New deeds in a trust under her name. She'll have full ownership regardless of the marriage outcome. Marcus paused. You're being generous. I'm being practical. Adrian turned from the window. This arrangement works because it's clean. She gets stability, Emma gets a maternal figure, I get the board off my back about family values. Everyone serves their purpose. Marcus studied him. You haven't even met her. I've seen her file. 29 years old, some college, but dropped out when her father got sick. Managed the farm solo for 3 years despite zero agricultural background. Adrian picked up the photograph Marcus had provided, a candid shot of Savannah at a farmer's market, laughing at something off camera, her red hair catching the sunlight. She looked nothing like the society women who usually circulated in his world. She looked real. She survived worse than a loveless marriage. She'll adapt. Mom. And if she doesn't? Adrian's jaw tightened. Then we'll renegotiate. But the contract's clear. This is business, not a fairy tale. She knows what she's signing up for. Does she? Marcus asked quietly. Because Patricia Hale is a piece of work. I wouldn't trust her version of anything. Adrian had wondered the same thing. Patricia Hale had approached his mother at some charity function, pitching the arrangement like she was selling real estate. The audacity would have been impressive if it wasn't so transparent. But Adrian's mother, Helen Cross, had been pushing him toward remarriage for years, ever since Lily died. 5 years. That's how long it had been since his wife's car went off that bridge in the rain. 5 years of raising Emma alone, of board meetings where investors whispered about his instability, of his mother's increasingly desperate attempts to secure the family legacy. This marriage solved problems. That's all it needed to do. Make sure she has everything she needs, Adrian said. Arrange for a stylist, update her wardrobe, whatever's appropriate for the wedding. And Marcus, be discreet. I don't want this turning into a media circus. Already handled. The NDAs are airtight. Marcus gathered his papers. For what it's worth, Adrian, I hope this works out better than you're expecting. After Marcus left, Adrian stood alone in his office, looking at Savannah's photograph. Her smile seemed to mock him. Genuine joy, uncomplicated and bright. He wondered how long it would take before he killed that light in her eyes. Probably not long. He set the photo face down on his desk and returned to work. Feelings were liabilities. He'd learned that the hard way. Savannah stood in front of the mirror in a room that cost more than her entire farm, wearing a dress that felt like a costume. The stylist had arrived at dawn, a severe woman named Dominique who'd taken one look at Savannah's calloused hands and work-worn face and sighed like she'd been handed an impossible task. 3 hours later, Savannah barely recognized herself. The dress was champagne silk, deceptively simple, but probably worth more than a car. Her hair had been tamed into soft waves, her face painted with makeup so subtle she almost looked natural. Almost. You clean up nice, Patricia said from the doorway, already 2 glasses of champagne in. Try to smile when you meet him. You look like you're attending a funeral. Maybe I am, Savannah muttered. Patricia laughed. Dramatic. This is the best thing that ever happened to you, and you're acting like a martyr. She crossed the room, adjusting Savannah's necklace with rough hands. Listen to me. You walk down there, you say your vows, you play the part. Adrian Cross doesn't want your heart, Savannah. He wants a placeholder. So be one. Take the money, live in luxury, and stop drowning in sentiment about a farm that was already dead. Savannah pulled away. You didn't even love my father, did you? This was always about what you could take. Something flickered in Patricia's eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe just irritation. Your father was a good man who made bad financial decisions. I tried to help. I failed. Now I'm trying again. She drained her glass. Whether you believe that or not doesn't change what happens in 20 minutes. So pull yourself together. She left, and Savannah was alone again with her reflection and the crushing weight of what she was about to do. The ceremony was small, immediate family only, which for Adrian apparently meant his mother, his 4-year-old daughter Emma, and a handful of lawyers. No friends, no warmth, just contracts and witnesses. Savannah walked down the marble staircase of the Cross estate, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone must hear it. And then she saw him. Adrian Cross stood at the bottom of the stairs in a black suit, hands clasped in front of him, expression completely unreadable. He was taller than she'd expected, dark hair styled precisely, features that would have been handsome if they weren't so cold. His eyes met hers, gray, assessing, giving away nothing. This was her husband, this stranger who looked at her like she was a quarterly earnings report. Miss Hale. His voice was deeper than she'd imagined, professional and distant. Shall we begin? No greeting, no reassurance, just business. Savannah descended the remaining stairs, her legs somehow still working despite feeling like water. When she reached him, he offered his arm, the gesture mechanical, perfunctory. She took it, and his warmth surprised her. Somehow she'd expected him to be as cold physically as he seemed emotionally. The officiant was already waiting in the library, a room lined with leather-bound books that probably cost more than Savannah's education. Emma sat between Adrian's mother and Patricia, her small face confused and solemn. She had Adrian's eyes, but where his were guarded, hers held open curiosity. The ceremony lasted 7 minutes. Savannah would remember that detail later, how you could legally bind your life to a stranger's in less time than it took to cook pasta. The vows were standard, impersonal. Adrian's voice never wavered. When it was time for rings, he slid a platinum band onto her finger with the efficiency of someone signing paperwork. You may kiss the bride, the officiant said. Adrian hesitated, the first crack in his composure. Then he leaned in, his hand light on her waist, and kissed her. It was brief, chaste, utterly forgettable, except for the way his fingers tightened just slightly on her hip, like he was steadying himself. When he pulled back, his expression was already closed again. Congratulations, his mother said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Helen Cross was elegant in the way only old money could achieve, every hair in place, every word carefully chosen. Welcome to the family, Savannah. I'm sure you'll find your place here. It sounded like a warning. The reception was worse than the ceremony. Champagne and stilted conversation in a drawing room that felt more like a museum. Adrian barely spoke to her, instead focusing on Emma, who kept staring at Savannah like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Are you my new mommy? Emma finally asked, her voice small and uncertain. Savannah's heart cracked. She knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the little girl. I'm going to be living here now, with you and your daddy, because my real mommy died, Emma said, matter-of-factly, the way children do when they've been told difficult truths too many times. I'm sorry, Savannah whispered, because what else could she say? Emma studied her with those serious gray eyes. You're pretty, but you look sad. Before Savannah could respond, Adrian appeared, his hand on Emma's shoulder. Time for bed, sweetheart. But I want to talk to Savannah. Bed, Emma. His tone allowed no argument. He looked at Savannah, and for a split second she saw something behind the ice. Maybe regret, maybe just exhaustion. We'll talk later. But they didn't. The reception ended. Patricia left in a car service, already spending her new allowance in her mind. Helen Cross retired to the guest wing, and Savannah found herself alone in the vast master suite, sitting on a bed that could fit 5 people, waiting for a husband who'd married her for PR. Adrian appeared at 11:30, still dressed but with his tie loosened, looking like a man who'd just finished a board meeting rather than his wedding day. He stopped when he saw her, something unreadable crossing his face. Savannah had changed out of the wedding dress into a simple nightgown the stylist had provided. Silk, probably expensive, but at least it didn't feel like a costume. She stood by the window looking out at gardens she could barely see in the darkness. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said quietly. This is my room. He moved to the bar cart, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. But I can arrange separate quarters if you'd prefer. Is that what you'd prefer? Adrian turned, studying her. In the low light, his features softened slightly, the harsh businessman exterior cracking just enough to reveal something human underneath. I don't know what I prefer anymore, he admitted, but I made you a promise today, even if it was just legal words. I keep my promises. He handed her a glass. Their fingers brushed, and Savannah felt that same jolt of warmth from earlier. I looked you up, she said, after Patricia told me about the arrangement. You were married before. To Lily Chen. She died 5 years ago. Adrian's jaw tightened. Marcus told you? Google told me. It wasn't hard to find. Savannah took a sip of whiskey, the burn steadying her nerves. The articles said it was an accident, that you were devastated, that you haven't been photographed with anyone since. Those articles don't know anything. His voice went cold again, walls slamming back into place. Then tell me something real, Savannah challenged. We just got married. Shouldn't I know at least one true thing about you? Adrian laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You want truth? Fine. I married Lily because I loved her. We were together since college. She was brilliant and funny, and she made me believe I could be someone better than my last name demanded. He drained his glass. Then she died because she was driving too fast in the rain, trying to get home to Emma. The police report said she lost control on a curve. I wasn't there. I was in a meeting about quarterly projections that I don't even remember. The rawness in his voice caught Savannah off guard. This wasn't the cold businessman. This was someone bleeding. I'm sorry, she said. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. Adrian set his glass down too hard. You want to know why I agreed to this arrangement? Because Emma needs stability and I'm failing her, because my mother and the board are right. I can't do this alone. And because this way, it's clean. No feelings to betray, no expectations to fail. Just a contract. Savannah moved closer. Except we're not contracts. We're people. People break. Adrian looked at her, and for the first time she saw the exhaustion behind his eyes, years of it, built up like scar tissue. I can't afford to break again, Savannah. So whatever you're hoping this becomes, kill it now. I'll give you security, respect, everything the contract promises. But don't ask me for my heart. I don't have one left to give. She should have been hurt. She should have turned away, protected herself from someone so clearly damaged. Instead, she reached up and touched his face, his skin warm under her palm, his stubble rough against her fingers. You're still here, she said softly. You're still standing. That's not broken, Adrian. That's surviving. Something shifted in his expression. His hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm against his cheek. You don't know me. Then let me. The kiss happened so slowly it felt inevitable. Adrian's lips met hers gently at first, tentative, like he'd forgotten how to do this with someone who wasn't a ghost. But then his hand slid into her hair, and the gentleness transformed into something desperate and hungry and real. Savannah kissed him back with equal desperation, tasting whiskey and loneliness and 5 years of grief. This wasn't romance. This was two broken people reaching for something solid in the darkness. They made it to the bed somehow, clothes discarded with shaking hands. Adrian's body was warm and solid above her, his breathing ragged against her neck. When he looked down at her, his eyes held a vulnerability that made her chest ache. We shouldn't, he whispered, even as his body betrayed every word. Probably not, she agreed, pulling him closer. This doesn't change anything. I know, but they both knew that was a lie. The moment Adrian kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth, everything changed. The contract became real. The arrangement became intimate. The strangers became something dangerously close to lovers. Later, much later, as Savannah lay against Adrian's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow, she felt his fingers trace patterns on her shoulder, absent, gentle, almost tender. I'm going to hurt you, he murmured into the darkness. Eventually. I hurt everyone I care about. Savannah pressed closer. Maybe I'm tougher than you think. I hope so. His arms tightened around her. God, I hope so. They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd signed up for a business arrangement and accidentally found something that felt like hope. But hope, Savannah would learn, was the most dangerous emotion of all. Savannah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and an empty bed. The sheets beside her were cool. Adrian had been gone for a while. She sat up slowly, pulling the duvet around herself, reality crashing back with uncomfortable clarity. She'd slept with her husband, her arranged marriage, contract-bound, emotionally unavailable husband who'd explicitly told her not to expect anything real. Stupid, she muttered to herself, pressing her palms against her eyes. A knock at the door made her jump. "Mrs. Cross?" An unfamiliar voice. "May I come in?" Savannah grabbed a robe from the bathroom. "Yes?" A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a tray. "Good morning, I'm Margaret, the head housekeeper. Mr. Cross asked me to bring you breakfast and let you know he's been called away on business." The words hit like cold water. "Called away?" "Urgent matter in Singapore. His flight left at 6 this morning." Margaret set the tray on the bedside table. Coffee, fruit, pastries that Savannah had no appetite for. "He said he'd be in touch." Savannah's throat tightened. "Did he leave a note or—" "Just his instructions for your comfort, ma'am." Margaret's expression was professionally neutral, but Savannah caught a flicker of sympathy. "Is there anything else you need?" "No, thank you." After Margaret left, Savannah sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the breakfast she couldn't eat. He'd left. Without a word, without an explanation, without even a goddamn text message. The morning after their wedding night, and he'd literally fled the country. The message was clear. Last night was a mistake. An aberration in the contract. Nothing that would be repeated or acknowledged. Savannah's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. This was exactly what he'd warned her about. She was the idiot who'd ignored the warnings and read meaning into something that was supposed to stay meaningless. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "How's married life? Hope you're enjoying the upgrade." Savannah threw the phone across the room. The days blurred into a week, then two. Adrian remained in Singapore, his absence a constant presence in the enormous house. Savannah tried to find her place in a world where she clearly didn't belong. Emma was the one bright spot. The little girl approached Savannah cautiously at first, testing boundaries, seeing if this new person in her life would disappear like her mother had. They had tea parties in Emma's room, elaborate affairs with stuffed animals and plastic cups that Emma took very seriously. "Do you love my daddy?" Emma asked one afternoon, arranging her teddy bears in a circle. Savannah's hand stilled over the pretend teapot. "That's a complicated question, sweetheart. Nana says you married him for money." Emma said it without judgment, just repeating what she'd heard. Savannah's stomach dropped. "Your Nana said that?" Emma nodded, focused on her bears. "She talks on the phone sometimes. I hear her." Helen Cross. Of course. Savannah had barely seen Adrian's mother since the wedding, but her presence lingered like expensive perfume, subtle, invasive, impossible to ignore. "Sometimes," Savannah said carefully, "grown-ups make agreements that don't look like regular marriages. Your daddy and we're still figuring things out." "Will you leave?" Emma's voice went small. "Like Mommy did?" Savannah pulled the little girl into her lap. "Your mommy didn't want to leave, Emma. That was an accident. And no, I'm not going anywhere." Even as she said it, she wondered if it was a lie. How long could she live in this mausoleum, married to a ghost, raising someone else's child, pretending everything was fine? That night, Savannah's phone finally rang with an international number. "Hello?" Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears. "Savannah?" Adrian's voice was rough with exhaustion. "I'm sorry I haven't called sooner. Things here have been complicated." "You left." The words came out sharper than she'd intended. "The morning after our wedding, without even a note." Silence stretched across the Pacific. Finally, I panicked. The honesty surprised her. "Because of what happened between us?" "Because it felt real," he admitted, "and I wasn't prepared for that. I'm still not." He sighed. "I should have handled it better. Should have talked to you before I ran." "Yeah, you should have." "I'm trying, Savannah. This is all just... I'm not good at this. At being vulnerable. At letting people in." Another pause. "How's Emma?" "She's wonderful. We had tea with Mr. Fluffington and Princess Bear today." Adrian's laugh was surprised and genuine. "She roped you into the tea parties already. I'm impressed. It took Lily 3 months to get invited." The mention of his dead wife should have stung. Instead, it felt like a peace offering, a piece of his real life, shared voluntarily. "She's easy to love," Savannah said softly. "She is." Adrian's voice went quiet. "Listen, I'm back on Friday. We should talk, really talk, about what this arrangement is and what it isn't. Okay? And Savannah, I am sorry for leaving the way I did. You deserved better." After he hung up, Savannah sat in the dark library, phone pressed to her chest, feeling something dangerous bloom in her ribs. He'd apologized. He'd called. He'd admitted he was scared. Maybe there was hope after all. Friday arrived with rain and dread. Savannah spent the morning obsessing over what to wear, what to say, how to act, when Adrian finally came home. She settled on jeans and a sweater, her own clothes, not the designer pieces that had appeared in her closet. If they were going to talk, she wanted to be herself. His car pulled up at 2 in the afternoon. Savannah watched from the library window as Adrian emerged, dark suit rumpled from travel, exhaustion written in every line of his body. He looked up at the house like he was stealing himself. Then Emma burst through the front door, pigtails flying, and Adrian's face transformed. He dropped his briefcase and caught her, swinging her up with a laugh that Savannah had never heard from him before. "I missed you, Daddy." Emma wrapped her arms around his neck. "Missed you too, Princess. Were you good for Savannah?" "So good. We made cookies and she taught me a song and she doesn't even get mad when I spill things." Adrian's eyes found Savannah in the window. Even from a distance, she felt the intensity of his gaze. He set Emma down, said something that made her giggle, and headed inside. Savannah met him in the foyer, heart hammering. He looked different somehow, older, more worn, but also more present than he'd been on their wedding day. "Hi," she said, because her brain had apparently shut down. "Hi." He moved closer, his hand coming up to touch her face, the gesture tentative, like he was asking permission. "You look beautiful." "I look like a farm girl in jeans." "Exactly." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" They ended up in his office, rain drumming against the windows, 2 feet of expensive carpet between them feeling like miles. Adrian poured himself a drink but didn't offer her one this time, a small intimacy lost. "I've been thinking," he started, then stopped. Started again. "About us. This marriage. What I want it to be." Savannah waited, hardly breathing. "I can't promise you love," Adrian said slowly. "I don't know if I'm capable of that anymore, but I can promise partnership, respect, honesty, as much as I'm able." He turned to face her. "And I can promise to try, to not run when things get complicated, to actually be present instead of treating you like a contract clause." "That sounds like progress," Savannah managed. "It's the best I can do right now." He set his glass down. "But if you need more, if you need romance or declarations or the whole fairy tale, I'll understand. We can renegotiate the terms, find you an arrangement that doesn't leave you waiting for a husband who might never show up emotionally." Savannah stood, closing the distance between them. "What if I don't want to renegotiate? What if I want to try this, messily, honestly, with all the complications?" Adrian's eyes searched hers. "Why? You could do so much better than a damaged billionaire with more baggage than sense." "Maybe I'm damaged too," she said. "Maybe we're both just trying to survive. And maybe that's enough to build something on." He kissed her then, different from their wedding night, slower and more deliberate, like he was choosing her instead of being driven by desperation. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "I'm going to disappoint you," he whispered, "probably frequently." "I'm going to drive you crazy," she countered, "definitely frequently." "Is that a yes? To trying this?" Savannah kissed him again, her answer clear. "It's a yes." For the next 2 weeks, they tried. Adrian worked from home more, joined them for dinner, read Emma bedtime stories. He and Savannah talked late into the night, real conversations about their pasts, their fears, the people they used to be before life broke them down. They made love again, and this time Adrian didn't run. He stayed, his arms wrapped around Savannah as she fell asleep, his breathing steady against her hair. It wasn't perfect. Adrian still shut down sometimes, disappeared into work when emotions got too heavy. Savannah still felt like an imposter in designer clothes, playing house in a mansion that would never be home. but it was real. Complicated and fragile and real. And for the first time since her mother died, Savannah thought maybe, just maybe, she'd made the right choice. 6 weeks into the marriage, Savannah stood in the bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines that changed everything. Pregnant. Her hands shook as she set the test on the counter. They'd been careful most of the time, but that first night, that desperate wedding night when neither of them had been thinking straight. "Savannah?" Adrian's voice from the bedroom. "You okay in there?" She opened the door, the test hidden behind her back. "Fine, just give me a minute." He studied her face, concern creasing his forehead. "You look pale. Are you sick?" "No, I'm—" She pulled the test from behind her back, words failing. Adrian stared at it like it was a bomb. "Is that positive? I'm pregnant." The silence stretched so long, Savannah's chest began to ache. Adrian's face cycled through emotions too fast to track. Shock, fear, something that might have been joy. Then a shuttered blankness that terrified her more than anything. "Say something," she whispered. "How long have you known?" 5 minutes. I just took the test." She moved closer, searching his face for any reaction that felt safe. "Adrian, talk to me, please." "I need to think." He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "This isn't— we weren't supposed to— It happened anyway." Savannah's voice cracked. "We're married. This isn't some scandal. We can handle this." Adrian spun back to her, and the fear in his eyes broke her heart. "I lost Lily because of Emma, because she was rushing home to our daughter, and now you're telling me you're pregnant, and all I can think is how many ways this could go wrong, how I could lose you both. You won't. You don't know that." His voice rose, desperate. "Nobody knows that. Life doesn't come with guarantees, Savannah. It just takes and takes until there's nothing left." "So what are you saying?" Savannah asked quietly. "You don't want this baby?" "I'm saying I'm terrified." Adrian sank onto the bed, head in his hands. "I'm saying I don't know how to do this without destroying everything." Again. Savannah sat beside him, taking his hand. "Then we figure it out together. That's what partners do." He looked at her, and for a moment she saw the man who'd held her on their wedding night, vulnerable, hurting, desperately trying to keep the pieces of himself from scattering. "I want to believe that." "Then believe it." She pressed his palm against her still flat stomach. "We made this. Together. And we can face whatever comes. Together." Adrian's fingers spread across her abdomen, his expression softening into something like wonder. "A baby," he whispered. Then louder. "We're having a baby." Savannah's laugh came out wet with tears. "We're having a baby?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. "I'm going to try," he promised against her hair. "I'm going to try so damn hard to not screw this up. That's all I'm asking." For 3 days, it felt like maybe they'd be okay. Adrian was attentive, protective, already researching the best obstetricians in Atlanta. Emma was thrilled about being a big sister. Even Helen Cross offered a stiff congratulations, though her eyes held calculations Savannah couldn't quite read. Then the tabloids exploded. Billionaire's shotgun bride. Did she trap him? Adrian Cross's secret wedding revealed, and she's already pregnant. From farm girl to fortune hunter. The suspicious timeline of the Cross marriage. Savannah stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, watching her life get dissected by strangers. The articles were vicious, painting her as a gold digger who'd deliberately gotten pregnant to secure her position. Someone had leaked their marriage date, done the math, and decided she'd planned the whole thing. "Savannah?" Margaret appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Cross is asking for you in his office." The walk down the hall felt like an execution march. When she entered, Adrian stood by the window, tablet in hand, his expression carved from ice. "Did you see?" she asked. "Everyone's seen." He set the tablet down too carefully. "My publicist has been fielding calls all morning. The board is in an uproar. My mother is livid." "None of it's true," Savannah said. "You know that, right? I didn't plan this. I didn't trap you." Adrian's jaw worked. "The timing is convenient, though, isn't it? 6 weeks into a marriage of convenience, and suddenly you're pregnant." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "You think I did this on purpose?" "I think you're not stupid," Adrian said coldly. "A baby makes you permanent, secures your position, Guarantees financial support even if the marriage fails. Savannah's vision blurred. That night, our wedding night, we both made that choice. You were there too, Adrian. Was I? He turned to face her fully, and the man standing there wasn't her husband. It was the billionaire who'd married her as a transaction. Or did you make sure protection wasn't an option? Make sure you'd have leverage? Get out, Savannah whispered. This is my house. Then I'll leave. She turned for the door, tears streaming down her face. Because I'm not staying here while you accuse me of trapping you. I'm not staying where I'm not trusted. Savannah, his voice cracked, something human breaking through the ice. But she was already gone, running up the stairs, throwing clothes into a bag with shaking hands. She'd been stupid to think this could work. Stupid to believe a contract could turn into something real. Stupid to fall in love with a man who'd told her from the beginning he had no heart left to give. Adrian appeared in the doorway. Don't go. Why? She spun to face him. So you can accuse me of more things? Question my motives? Treat me like I'm some scheming villain in your tragic story? I'm scared, he said hoarsely. I'm terrified that this is real, and I'll ruin it, that I'll lose you like I lost Lily, that I'm not capable of being what you need, so yes, I lashed out. I turned you into the enemy because that's easier than admitting how much you've already come to mean to me. That's not good enough. Savannah zipped her bag. I can't live like this, Adrian, waiting for you to panic and push me away every time things get hard. I deserve better. This baby deserves better. I know. Tears tracked down his face the first time she'd seen him cry. I know you do, and I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. But sorry wasn't enough to erase the words. Wasn't enough to rebuild trust that had shattered the moment he'd looked at her like an enemy. Savannah walked past him, bag in hand, heart in pieces. Where are you going? Adrian asked desperately. Somewhere you can't hurt me anymore. She left him standing in the bedroom where they'd promised to try, where they'd made love and plans, and a baby who'd now grow up knowing their parents' marriage was built on sand. Behind her, Adrian Cross, billionaire, single dad, broken man, finally learned what it felt like when the people you love walk away. And this time, he only had himself to blame. The monastery sat 3 hours north of Atlanta, hidden in the Blue Ridge Mountains like a secret the world had forgotten. Savannah found it through a pregnancy forum of all places, a woman mentioning a silent retreat center that took in women who needed to disappear for a while. No questions asked, no judgments passed. The building was old stone and older wood, surrounded by pine trees that whispered in the wind. A nun named Sister Catherine met her at the gate, took one look at Savannah's swollen eyes and single suitcase, and simply said, "Come." That was 2 months ago. Now Savannah sat in a small room with a narrow bed, a wooden desk, and a window overlooking mountains that turned purple in the twilight. Her hand rested on her stomach, where the baby, 4 months along now, had started making its presence known with flutter kicks that felt like butterflies trapped under her skin. She hadn't spoken to Adrian since she left. He'd called 47 times the first week, sent texts that ranged from desperate apologies to angry demands that she come home. His lawyer had called too, assuring her the financial arrangements remained intact, that she'd be taken care of regardless. Like money fixed anything. Eventually the calls stopped. Either he'd given up or Patricia had finally told him where Savannah was hiding. She suspected the latter. Her stepmother had shown up 3 weeks ago with a designer handbag and disapproval radiating off her like heat. This is pathetic, Patricia had said, looking around the sparse room like it personally offended her. You're living in poverty when you could be in a mansion, all because your feelings got hurt? He accused me of trapping him, Savannah had replied quietly. He looked at me like I was a con artist running a scheme. So prove him wrong. Go back, hold your head up, make him regret every word. Patricia had leaned forward. You think running away makes you noble? It makes you weak, and it makes me look bad for arranging this whole thing. That's what you care about? How this looks? Patricia's expression had shuddered. I care about you wasting an opportunity most women would kill for. But fine. Rot up here in the mountains playing martyr. See how that works out when the baby comes and you're alone. She'd left in a cloud of expensive perfume, and Savannah hadn't heard from her since. The isolation should have been suffocating. Instead, it felt like breathing for the first time in months. The nuns didn't ask questions. They provided meals, offered the chapel for meditation, and otherwise left her alone. At night, someone played piano in the monastery's small music room, old hymns and classical pieces that drifted through the stone halls like ghosts. Savannah found herself drawn to the music. She'd started slipping into the room after dinner, sitting in the shadows while Sister Mary, a woman in her 70s with hands that still moved across the keys like water, played everything from Bach to Chopin. "You can come closer," Sister Mary said one evening without stopping her playing. "I don't bite." Savannah moved to a chair near the piano. "I don't want to interrupt." "Music is meant to be shared, child." Sister Mary finished her piece and turned on the bench. "Do you play?" "My mother tried to teach me. I wasn't very good." "Most people aren't at first." Sister Mary gestured to the piano. "Try." Savannah's hands felt clumsy on the keys, but she managed a halting version of Für Elise, the only piece she'd ever fully learned. Sister Mary listened without judgment, and when Savannah finished, she said, "Your mother was a patient teacher." "She was patient about everything," Savannah said softly. "She died 3 years ago. Cancer." Sister Mary nodded slowly. "And now you're here, carrying new life while grieving the old. The circle is brutal sometimes." "Did you know my mother?" The question came out before Savannah could stop it. "I mean, this seems like the kind of place she would have known about." Something flickered across Sister Mary's weathered face. "What was her name?" "Elizabeth Hale. Before she married, it was Elizabeth Morrison." The silence that followed felt heavy. Sister Mary's hand stilled on the piano keys. "Elizabeth Morrison," she repeated. "From Atlanta?" "Yes, did you?" "Come with me." Sister Mary stood abruptly, moving with surprising speed for her age. "There's something you need to see." She led Savannah through corridors Savannah hadn't explored, down to a basement level that smelled of old paper and wood polish. Sister Mary unlocked a door marked Archives and flipped on lights that revealed floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with boxes, books, and filing cabinets. "We keep records of everyone who stayed here," Sister Mary explained, running her finger along labels. "Donations, correspondence, legal documents from when the monastery was founded." She pulled down a box marked 1988 to 1995. "Your mother came here once, long before you were born." Savannah's heart hammered. "When?" "Summer of 1994, if memory serves." Sister Mary opened the box, sifting through papers. "She was young, maybe 22, 23. Stayed for 6 weeks. She was running from something, though she never said what." She pulled out a folder and handed it to Savannah. Inside were intake forms filled out in her mother's handwriting, that familiar looping script that Savannah used to see on grocery lists and birthday cards. Elizabeth Morrison, age 23. Occupation, music teacher. Reason for visit, personal retreat. "There's more," Sister Mary said quietly. She pulled out a manila envelope, unsealed and yellowed with age. "Your mother left these with me before she departed. Said if anyone ever came asking about her, I should give them this." "Why would someone come asking?" "I don't know. She seemed afraid, though, kept looking over her shoulder." Sister Mary pressed the envelope into Savannah's hands. "I'm sorry I never got to return these to her before she passed." Savannah opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were sheets of music, original compositions in her mother's handwriting, notes scribbled in the margins. But underneath the music were photographs. Her mother, young and vibrant, standing beside a man Savannah didn't recognize. He was handsome, dark-haired, probably in his 30s. In every photo, they looked at each other like the rest of the world didn't exist. "Who is this?" Savannah whispered. Sister Mary leaned closer, then went very still. "That's Edward Cross." The name hit Savannah like a train. "Adrian's father?" "Adrian's father, yes, and one of the wealthiest men in Georgia until he died. When was it? 8, 9 years ago?" Sister Mary studied the photos. "I didn't know Elizabeth knew him. She never mentioned it." Savannah's mind raced. Her mother had known Edward Cross, had been photographed with him looking like... No, it couldn't mean what it looked like. She flipped through more photos. Her mother and Edward at what looked like a concert hall. At a restaurant. In a park, his arm around her shoulders, both of them laughing. And then a final photo that made Savannah's blood run cold. Her mother, visibly pregnant, Edward's hand resting on her swollen belly. "What year did you say she was here?" Savannah's voice came out strangled. "Summer of 94, she left in August." Savannah was born in February 1995, 9 months after her mother left this monastery. "Oh my God," Savannah whispered. "Oh my God." Sister Mary's hand gripped her shoulder. "Child, what is it?" But Savannah couldn't answer. She was too busy calculating dates, adding up impossible truths, realizing that the man she'd always called father, the farmer who raised her, who read her bedtime stories, who taught her to drive, might not have been her biological father at all, which meant Edward Cross was, which meant Adrian was her half-brother, which meant the baby growing inside her. Savannah made it to a trash can before she vomited. Sister Mary held her hair back, murmuring soothing words that Savannah couldn't process over the roaring in her ears. When she finally stopped retching, she slumped against the stone wall, the photos scattered around her like evidence of a crime. "I need to know for sure," Savannah said hoarsely. "I need proof." "What kind of proof?" "My mother had a safe deposit box at First National in Athens. She made me promise never to open it unless it was an emergency." Savannah's laugh came out broken. "I think this qualifies." Sister Mary helped her gather the photos. "Do you have the key?" "It's with her lawyer. He gave it to me after she died, along with instructions." Savannah pressed her hands to her face. "I never opened it. She seemed so insistent that I only use it if I absolutely had to, and I thought she was just being dramatic about financial records, or her will, or something normal." "I'll drive you to Athens tomorrow," Sister Mary said firmly. "You shouldn't be alone for this." That night, Savannah lay awake in her narrow bed, one hand on her stomach, the other clutching a photo of her mother and Edward Cross. If this was true, if Elizabeth Morrison had been Edward's lover, if Savannah was his daughter, it explained so much. Why her mother had seemed haunted sometimes, looking out windows like she expected someone to appear. Why she'd insisted Savannah keep her maiden name as a middle name. Why she'd made Savannah promise to open that safe deposit box only in emergencies. She'd been protecting a secret that had just become a nightmare. The drive to Athens took 2 hours through mountain roads that made Savannah nauseous. Sister Mary drove in silence, occasionally glancing at Savannah with concern, but not pushing for conversation. First National Bank was a Greek revival building that looked like it had stood since Sherman's March. The manager, a thin man named Gerald who remembered Elizabeth Morrison, led them to the vault without questions once Savannah produced the key and her ID. "Your mother was very specific about the contents," Gerald said as he unlocked the box. "She updated her instructions as recently as 2 years before she passed, said you'd know when the time was right to open it." He left them alone in a small private room. The safe deposit box sat between them like Pandora's box. Savannah opened it. Inside were documents, legal papers, birth certificates, more photographs, and a letter addressed to Savannah in her mother's handwriting. "My dearest Savannah, if you're reading this, then the truth has found you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive, but the danger was too great, and I was a coward who chose silence over courage. Edward Cross was your biological father. We met when I was teaching piano at a conservatory in Atlanta. He was married to Helen, already had 2 young sons, Adrian and Damien. What we did was wrong, but I loved him with everything I had. When I discovered I was pregnant with you, Edward wanted me to disappear. Not because he didn't love us, but because Helen would have destroyed us both. She came from old money, had connections that could ruin lives. Edward said if Helen found out about you, she'd make sure neither of us survived the scandal. So he arranged everything. Paid off debts for a farmer named Thomas Hale, a good man who needed a wife after his first passed. Thomas knew the truth that you weren't his biological daughter, but he loved you anyway. He raised you as his own, and I thank heaven for him every day. Edward set up a trust for you, hidden from Helen and the Cross family. It's yours now. Enough money to live comfortably, to never need anyone's help. The account numbers are in this box. But sweetheart, there's more. Edward died under suspicious circumstances 8 years ago. The official story was a heart attack, but I never believed it. He'd been healthy, careful, and 3 weeks before he died, he called me terrified. Said Helen had found out about us. About you. Said she'd made threats. Then he was dead, and I was too scared to fight for the truth. If you're reading this, something has happened that's brought you into the Cross family's orbit. Please, Savannah, be careful. Helen Cross is dangerous. She's protected her family's image and fortune for 40 years, and she won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens it. I love you. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you this in person. I'm sorry for all of it. Your mother, Elizabeth. Savannah read the letter 3 times, each pass making her feel sicker. Sister Mary read over her shoulder, her hand tightening on Savannah's arm. This changes everything, Sister Mary whispered. I married my half-brother. Savannah's voice cracked. I'm pregnant with my half-brother's child. We didn't know, but that doesn't change what it is. The baby? I don't know. Savannah pressed both hands to her stomach. I don't know what this means for the baby. Genetically, morally, legally. I don't know anything anymore. She pulled out the other documents. A birth certificate listing Edward Cross as her father. Bank statements showing regular deposits into an account Savannah never knew existed. Millions of dollars accumulated over 30 years. Letters between Edward and Elizabeth. Love letters that broke Savannah's heart with their tenderness and desperation. And finally, a document that made everything worse. Edward's will. The official one that left everything to Helen, Adrian, and Damien. But underneath it, a separate document dated 3 months before Edward died. A codicil recognizing Savannah as his daughter and leaving her a third of the estate. Helen would have fought this, Sister Mary said, reading over her shoulder. If Edward had filed this, it would have exposed everything. He died before he could. Savannah's hands shook. My mother was right. This wasn't a heart attack. Helen killed him to protect her family's money and reputation. You don't know that for certain, don't I? Savannah looked up, tears streaming down her face. My mother disappeared to this monastery because she was afraid. Edward died right after threatening to legitimize me. And now I've walked straight into Helen Cross's house, married her son, gotten pregnant. I'm everything she was terrified Edward would reveal. Sister Mary's face went pale. She knows who you are? She must. The moment Patricia Hale approached her with this arrangement, Helen would have investigated, would have found the connection. Savannah stood abruptly, the room spinning. This wasn't random. Patricia didn't just stumble into this opportunity. Someone orchestrated it. Who? I don't know. But whoever arranged my marriage to Adrian, they knew exactly who I was. Savannah grabbed the documents, shoving them back into the box. They set me up, made me walk into a trap I didn't even know existed. Her phone buzzed, the first time in weeks. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk about your mother, the monastery garden. 1 hour. Come alone. Savannah showed it to Sister Mary, whose expression darkened. Don't go. I have to know the truth. Then I'm coming with you. They argued about it the entire drive back, but Sister Mary was immovable. When they arrived at the monastery, she insisted on staying close, positioned where she could see the garden but hidden behind a stone column. Savannah waited on a bench beside a fountain that hadn't worked in decades. The mountains loomed around them, shadows lengthening as the sun dropped toward the horizon. She was just starting to think no one would show when she heard footsteps on gravel. A man emerged from the trees, tall, dark-haired, probably in his mid-30s. He had Adrian's features, but sharper, colder. His suit was expensive, his smile calculated. Savannah Hale, he said, or should I say Savannah Cross. Who are you? Damien Cross, Adrian's half-brother. He sat down beside her without invitation. Though I suppose that makes me your half-brother too, doesn't it? Funny how family trees get complicated. Savannah's blood ran cold. You knew? Of course I knew. I've known about you since you were born. Damien pulled out a cigarette, lit it despite the no-smoking signs. Edward couldn't keep secrets from everyone. I found letters when I was 16, did some digging, discovered dear old dad had a bastard daughter hidden away with a music teacher. What do you want? To make a deal. Damien exhaled smoke. See, when Edward died, he left behind that nasty little codicil recognizing you as his heir. Mother made it disappear naturally. Can't have scandal, but I kept a copy. Insurance, you might say. You're blackmailing me? I'm offering you a choice. Damien leaned closer. You walk away. From Adrian. From the Cross name. From any claim to Edward's estate. In return, I'll make sure your little secret stays buried. No one needs to know you married your brother. No one needs to know what that makes your baby. Savannah's hands clenched. And if I refuse, then I release everything. Photos, documents, DNA evidence I've already collected. The media will crucify you. Adrian will hate you for deceiving him. And that baby? Damien's smile turned vicious. Good luck explaining to your child why half the internet calls them an abomination. I didn't know, Savannah said hoarsely. Adrian didn't know. We're victims in this. Doesn't matter. The truth will destroy you both anyway. Damien stood, brushing ash from his suit. You've got 48 hours to decide. Disappear, or I burn your life down. He was almost to the trees when Savannah called out, Did your mother kill Edward? Damien stopped, turned, and for the first time his mask slipped, revealing something that might have been grief. What do you think? I think Helen Cross would do anything to protect her fortune and reputation. Then you're smarter than you look. Damien's voice went flat. My mother is a lot of things, Savannah, but she's not stupid. Edward threatened everything she'd built. So yes, she eliminated the threat. Just like she eliminated your mother's sister when she got too curious about Elizabeth's pregnancy. Just like she'll eliminate you if you don't run. My mother didn't have a sister, didn't she? Damien's smile returned, cruel and knowing. Ask yourself why Elizabeth was so terrified. Why she hid for 30 years. Who else died around the time you were born? He disappeared into the trees, leaving Savannah shaking on the bench. Sister Mary appeared at her side. I heard everything. My mother had a sister, Savannah whispered. I never knew. She never mentioned, Come inside. We need to contact the police. With what evidence? Damien's accusations? He'll deny everything. Savannah stood on unsteady legs. He's right. If this comes out, it destroys everyone. Adrian, the baby, me, we all become headline scandals. So you're going to run? Let them win? I don't know. Savannah pressed both hands to her stomach, where the baby was kicking frantically, like it could sense her distress. I need time to think. But time was something she didn't have. That night, Savannah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her mother's letter, Damien's threats, the impossible choice ahead of her. Around midnight, she gave up and wandered down to the music room, hoping Sister Mary's piano playing might calm her nerves. The room was empty, but someone had left sheet music on the piano. Not the hymns Sister Mary usually played. These were original compositions. Savannah picked them up, recognizing her mother's handwriting. More pieces from the box Sister Mary had shown her. She sat at the piano, playing through the first composition. It was beautiful, melancholic, and searching, like her mother had poured all her forbidden love and fear into the notes. Halfway through, Savannah found words written in the margins. For my Edward, who I can never have. Tears blurred her vision, but she kept playing. The music swelled, desperate and gorgeous, and Savannah understood for the first time what her mother had sacrificed. The love she'd buried, the daughter she'd hidden, the truth she'd died protecting. That's beautiful. A man's voice from the doorway made Savannah's hands crash onto the keys. Adrian stood there looking like he'd driven straight from hell. His suit was rumpled, his face haggard, dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept in weeks. He stared at Savannah like she was a ghost he'd been chasing. How did you find me? She managed. Patricia finally cracked. Took some convincing, but she gave up the location 3 days ago. Adrian moved into the room slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. I've been parked down the road for 2 days, trying to work up the courage to actually come inside. You should leave. I know. But he didn't move. I've practiced this conversation 1,000 times. All the things I'd say to convince you I'm sorry, that I was wrong, that I've been a complete bastard. His laugh came out broken. But now that I'm here, all I can think is how beautiful you look. Savannah stood, putting the piano between them. Don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth? Adrian's voice cracked. I've been going insane, Savannah. Emma cries for you every night. The house feels like a mausoleum. And I can't eat, can't sleep, can't think about anything except how I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You accused me of trapping you. I know. You looked at me like I was your enemy. I know. Tears tracked down his face. I was terrified, and I lashed out at the one person who didn't deserve it. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry, Savannah. If I could take it back, you can't. Savannah's own tears fell. Some things you can't unsay. Then let me prove it differently. Adrian moved around the piano. I love you. I've loved you since our wedding night, maybe before. And I'm not asking you to forgive me or come back or anything you're not ready for. I'm just asking you to let me be here. For you, for our baby, for whatever you need. Savannah wanted to collapse into his arms, wanted to believe him, but the documents in her room upstairs burned in her mind like acid. He couldn't love her, not when the truth would destroy them both. "There are things you don't know," she said quietly. "Things about me, about my family. I don't care." "You will." Savannah backed away. "Adrian, you need to leave, please, before this gets worse." "How could it get worse than losing you?" Before she could answer, headlights swept through the windows. A car pulled up outside. Expensive, black, familiar. The door opened, and Helen Cross emerged in furs and fury. "Oh no," Savannah whispered. Adrian turned, his expression hardening. "What is Mother doing here?" They found out fast. Helen stormed into the monastery like she owned it, Sister Catherine trying to stop her and failing. She found them in the music room, her eyes going first to Savannah, then to Adrian, her mouth curving into something sharp and triumphant. "Well," Helen said, "isn't this cozy? The runaway bride and my foolish son, reunited at last." "Mother, this isn't your business," Adrian said coldly. "Everything involving this family is my business." Helen pulled off her gloves slowly. "Especially when my son impregnates his own half-sister." The words hung in the air like poison. Adrian went very still. "What did you just say?" "Oh, you didn't tell him." Helen's smile widened. "How sweet, still protecting him from the truth." She pulled an envelope from her purse, threw it at Savannah's feet. "DNA results. I had them run weeks ago, the moment Patricia Hale proposed this ridiculous arrangement. Edward's DNA was on file from his estate processing. Savannah's DNA I lifted from a glass at the wedding. The results are conclusive. She's Edward's daughter." Adrian looked at Savannah, betrayal and horror dawning in his eyes. "Is this true?" Savannah couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She just nodded. "You knew," Adrian said slowly. "When I came here, when I told you I loved you, you already knew." "I just found out today." "Liar!" The word exploded out of him. "You've been hiding here for months. Don't tell me you didn't know." "I didn't. I swear, Adrian, I didn't know until this morning." Savannah grabbed the photos from the piano, thrust them at him. "My mother left these. I found them today. I was going to tell you, but then you showed up and—" Helen laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Such theatrics. This is exactly what Edward did. Created messes and expected everyone else to clean them up." She looked at Adrian. "I warned you about this marriage. Warned you the timing was suspicious, the girl too convenient. But you didn't listen." "Because you didn't tell me the real reason," Adrian said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You knew who Savannah was from the beginning." "Of course I knew. I've known about Elizabeth Morrison's bastard for 30 years. Helen's expression turned cold. "And I've spent 30 years making sure Edward's mistake didn't destroy everything I built. The last thing I needed was you falling in love with your own sister and creating an even bigger scandal." "So you orchestrated this," Savannah said slowly, the pieces clicking together. "You arranged the marriage through Patricia knowing exactly who I was, knowing it would eventually blow up. Why?" Helen's smile was all teeth. "Because Damien told me about Edward's codicil, the one recognizing you as an heir. If you tried to claim it, I needed leverage to discredit you. What better leverage than proving you knowingly married your half-brother and trapped him with a pregnancy?" She pulled out her phone. "I have recordings of Patricia discussing the arrangement with you, Savannah, edited naturally to make it sound like you knew the truth from the start. I have fabricated evidence of you researching the cross-family bloodline. I have everything I need to destroy you in court and public opinion." "Ying, you're insane," Adrian breathed. "I'm practical." Helen pocketed her phone. "Here's what's going to happen. Savannah will sign away any claim to Edward's estate. She'll agree to a quiet annulment on grounds of fraud. She'll disappear, take the money from whatever trust Edward set up and vanish. And in return, I won't release the evidence proving she manipulated you into an incestuous marriage." "And if I refuse?" Savannah asked. "Then I destroy you both. The marriage becomes headline news. Your baby becomes a symbol of depravity. Adrian loses his position in the company, his reputation, his daughter when the courts decide he's an unfit parent." Helen's eyes glittered. "Your choice, dear. Disappear quietly or burn publicly." Adrian moved in front of Savannah, his body a shield. "Get out, Mother." "Excuse me?" "I said get out, now." His voice was steel, Whatever you've planned, whatever leverage you think you have, I don't care. Savannah is my wife. That baby is my child. And you don't get to threaten them. Helen's expression hardened. You're choosing her? After everything you just learned? I'm choosing the truth over your manipulation. Adrian pulled out his own phone. And I'm choosing to call every media outlet in Atlanta and tell them exactly what you've done. How you've hidden Edward's daughter for 30 years. How you probably killed him to protect your fortune. How you orchestrated an incestuous marriage just to have blackmail material. You have no proof. Actually, Sister Mary said from the doorway, holding up her phone, we have all of it. I've been recording since you walked in, Helen. Every threat, every admission, all of it. Helen's face went white with rage. She lunged for Sister Mary, but Savannah stepped forward, something cold and certain settling in her chest. You killed my mother's sister, Savannah said quietly. Didn't you? That's what Damien meant. Someone was asking questions about my mother's pregnancy, and you silenced them. Helen's silence was answer enough. And when Edward threatened to legitimize me, you killed him too. Savannah's voice didn't waver. You've murdered to protect your fortune, manipulated your own children, destroyed lives like they're nothing. Careful, dear, Helen said softly. Accusations like that require proof. Then I'll find it. Savannah pulled out her own phone, dialing 911. But in the meantime, you're going to leave, because the police are coming and Sister Mary's recording is going into their evidence files, and your empire of lies is about to collapse. Helen stared at her, and for the first time, Savannah saw genuine fear in the older woman's eyes. Then her expression shuddered, and she turned on her designer heel. This isn't over, she said. Yeah, Adrian replied. It is. Helen left in a cloud of expensive rage, tires spitting gravel as she fled. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Sister Mary handed over her recording. Savannah gave them the documents from her mother's safe deposit box. Adrian called his lawyer, his publicist, his entire team. And through it all, he never let go of Savannah's hand. Later, much later, they sat alone in the monastery garden while official statements were being drafted and lawyers argued over evidence. The stars overhead were impossibly bright, the mountains dark silhouettes against the sky. I don't know what happens now, Savannah said quietly. Legally, morally, we can't stay married. I know. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm. But we can figure out how to be parents, how to raise this baby together, even if we can't be together. The baby might have complications. Genetically, we'll handle it, whatever comes. He turned to face her, his expression raw and open. I meant what I said earlier. I love you, Savannah. And I know that's complicated and probably wrong and definitely impossible, but it's true. I love you too. The admission hurt coming out, which makes this so much worse. They sat in silence, holding hands, mourning a future that could never exist. Inside Savannah, the baby kicked, strong, insistent, demanding a life neither of them knew how to give. But they'd figure it out. Somehow, they'd figure it out. They had to. The police investigation moved slower than winter molasses. Detective Sarah Chen, no relation to Adrian's lawyer Marcus, though they'd joked about it during the first interview, kept promising breakthroughs that never materialized. Helen Cross had lawyers that made brick walls look porous, and every piece of evidence Sister Mary had recorded somehow became inadmissible or circumstantial or buried under motions that took weeks to sort through. Savannah stayed at the monastery through it all. Adrian wanted her back at the estate, wanted to hire private security and the best doctors in Atlanta, but she refused. The stone walls and pine-scented air felt safer than any mansion ever could. He visited every other day, bringing Emma sometimes, bringing updates always. The little girl had taken the news about Savannah leaving with the resilience only children possess. Though she'd cried the first time she saw Savannah's growing belly and realized the baby was real. Can I still be the big sister? Emma had asked, her small hand resting tentatively on Savannah's stomach. Always, Savannah had promised, even though she had no idea how that would work legally, morally, or practically. 3 weeks after Helen's confrontation at the monastery, Damien showed up again. This time he didn't hide in shadows or send cryptic texts. He walked straight through the front gate in broad daylight, nodded at Sister Catherine like they were old friends, and found Savannah in the garden pulling weeds she had no business pulling at 6 months pregnant. You're stubborn, he said by way of greeting. I'll give you that. Savannah sat back on her heels, studying him. In daylight, the family resemblance was stronger. He had Edward's jawline, Adrian's eyes, her own stubborn mouth. 3 children from the same father, bound by blood and secrets, and a fortune built on lies. "What do you want, Damien?" "To give you this." He held out a flash drive. "Before Mother's lawyers bury it so deep no one will ever find it again." Savannah took it carefully, like it might explode. "What's on it?" "Everything. Edward's original will with the codicil naming you. Bank records showing Helen moving money around the day before Edward died. Emails between Mother and a man named Victor Petrov. He's the one who tampered with Edward's heart medication. Phone records proving Mother knew about Elizabeth Morrison and made threats." Damien's smile was bitter. "I've been collecting evidence for 8 years, ever since I figured out what really happened." "Why wait until now?" "Because I'm a coward." He sat down on the bench, suddenly looking exhausted. "And because part of me wanted to believe Mother did it for good reasons, that she was protecting the family, not just the money. But then she dragged you into this mess, orchestrated your marriage to Adrian knowing exactly what it was, and I realized she doesn't love any of us. She loves control." Savannah turned the flash drive over in her hands. "If this comes out, it destroys everyone. Adrian, Emma, the company. The company deserves to burn," Damien said flatly. "It's built on corruption and blood money. As for Adrian," he paused, "my brother's a good man trapped in a bad legacy. Maybe this sets him free. Or maybe it buries him." Savannah looked at her half-brother because that's what he was, whether either of them wanted it or not. "Why are you really doing this?" Damien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. "Because Edward was a bastard who couldn't keep his pants zipped, but he was my father, and Mother took him from me just like she took everything else. I want her to pay. Revenge won't bring him back." "No, but justice might let me sleep at night." He stood, brushing dirt from his expensive pants. "Give that to Detective Chen. Tell her to look into Victor Petrov. He's in Prague now, but he'll talk if the price is right. And Savannah, whatever happens with the annulment, the baby, all of it, you didn't deserve this. None of us did." He left before she could respond, disappearing into the afternoon shadows like a ghost seeking absolution. Savannah gave the flash drive to Detective Chen that evening. Within 48 hours, the investigation exploded. Victor Petrov was extradited from Prague, cut a deal in exchange for testimony. Helen's bank records were subpoenaed. Adrian's lawyers filed for emergency restraining orders against his own mother. And through it all, winter settled over the mountains like a blanket of ice. The storm hit on a Tuesday. Meteorologists had been warning about it for days. An Arctic blast moving down from Canada, promising record cold and dangerous conditions. Sister Catherine had stocked the monastery with supplies, checked the generators, made sure everyone who needed to evacuate had done so. Savannah should have left. Adrian had begged her to come to Atlanta, to stay somewhere with central heat and doctors nearby. But she'd refused, stubborn as always, convinced she had time before the baby came. She was wrong. The contractions started around 8 in the evening, subtle at first, just a tightening across her belly that she mistook for Braxton Hicks. By 9, they were coming every 20 minutes. By 10, every 10. And by 11, when the storm was howling outside and the power had flickered twice, Savannah realized she was in serious trouble. "Sister Catherine!" Her voice barely carried over the wind rattling the windows. She was in her room, one hand braced against the wall, the other pressed to her stomach, where the pain was building like a wave. The nun appeared within seconds, took one look at Savannah's face, and went pale. "How far apart?" 7 minutes, maybe less. Another contraction hit, stealing Savannah's breath. "It's too early. I'm only 28 weeks. I'm calling for an ambulance." But even as Sister Catherine grabbed her phone, they both knew it was hopeless. The roads were already impassable, snow coming down so thick you couldn't see 5 feet. No ambulance was making it up this mountain tonight. "Call Adrian," Savannah gasped when the contraction passed. "Please. He needs to know—" Sister Catherine was already dialing. The phone rang once, twice, then Adrian's voice crackled through, made tinny by distance and bad weather. "Savannah, what's wrong?" "The baby's coming," Savannah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm in labor. It's too early, Adrian. Something's wrong. I'm coming, right now. Don't move, don't panic. You can't." Sister Catherine took the phone. Mr. Cross, the roads are completely blocked. Nothing's getting through until this storm passes, and that won't be until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Adrian's response was a string of curses creative enough to make the nun wince. There has to be a way. A helicopter, something. In this weather? You'd die trying. Sister Catherine's voice was firm. We'll manage here. Sister Mary was a midwife before she took her vows. We have medical supplies. Savannah will be fine. But the look Sister Catherine gave Savannah suggested otherwise. Adrian must have heard it in her voice. Put Savannah back on. Sister Catherine handed over the phone. Savannah pressed it to her ear with shaking hands. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, sweetheart, but you're strong. Stronger than anyone I've ever met. Adrian's voice cracked. Listen to me. You're going to get through this. Sister Mary's going to help you. And the second this storm clears, I'm coming for you both. You hear me? What if something happens? What if the baby... Then we deal with it, together. But nothing's going to happen, Savannah. You're going to be fine. Another contraction hit, harder this time. Savannah's knees buckled. Sister Catherine caught her, lowering her onto the bed as Savannah rode out the pain, phone still clutched in her hand. Adrian! His name came out strangled. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. And he stayed on the line, talking her through contractions, telling her stories about Emma's latest Tea Party disasters, about the farm Savannah had inherited being transformed into something beautiful, about the future they'd figure out somehow, despite everything stacked against them. Sister Mary arrived with medical supplies that looked like they'd been salvaged from a museum. The old nun's hands were steady despite her age, her voice calm as she examined Savannah and delivered news that made everyone's blood run cold. The baby's breech, Sister Mary said quietly, and coming fast. On the phone, Adrian went silent. Then, what does that mean? It means complications, Sister Mary said, not sugarcoating it. It means this birth is going to be dangerous for both mother and child, and it means we need to prepare for the worst. No, Adrian's voice turned hard. Absolutely not. You get her to a hospital. We can't, Savannah screamed as another contraction tore through her. Adrian, we can't. The storm, there's no time. Then I'm coming to you. You'll die trying. I don't care. The rawness in his voice broke her. Savannah, I can't lose you. Not like this. Not when I just found you. Sister Catherine took the phone again. Mr. Cross, the best thing you can do right now is stay safe. Savannah needs to focus on delivering this baby, and she can't do that if she's worried about you dying in a snowstorm. She hung up before Adrian could argue, then turned to Savannah with an expression that was equal parts compassion and steel. You ready to do this? Savannah wanted to say no, wanted to run, to hide, to somehow reverse time to before everything got so impossibly complicated. Instead, she gritted her teeth through another contraction and nodded. The next 3 hours were a blur of pain and terror. Sister Mary coached her through pushes, wiped sweat from her forehead, murmured prayers that Savannah was too far gone to process. Sister Catherine monitored the baby's heartbeat with equipment that looked older than everyone in the room combined. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, Savannah started bleeding. That's not normal, Sister Catherine said, her calm finally cracking. Mary, we need to... I know... Sister Mary's face was grim. Savannah, listen to me. You need to push harder. The baby's in distress, and if we don't get him out in the next few minutes... Him? Savannah's laugh came out hysterical. It's a boy? It's a boy, and he's stubborn like his mama. So push. Savannah pushed. Through pain that made her vision white out, through exhaustion that made her limbs feel like lead, through fear that her baby would die before she ever got to hold him. She pushed until she had nothing left, and then she pushed more. And finally, blessedly, she felt the pressure release. The baby's cry was weak, barely a mule, but it was sound. Sister Mary moved fast, suctioning, wrapping, doing a dozen things Savannah couldn't track through the haze. When the nun finally placed the tiny, impossibly fragile bundle on Savannah's chest, Savannah looked down at her son and felt her heart crack wide open. He was so small, 3 pounds at most, skin almost translucent, fingers like delicate twigs. His eyes opened for just a second, gray, like Adrian's, like Edward's, like half the Cross family, before closing again. He needs a hospital, Sister Mary said gently. Soon as this storm clears? I know. Savannah pressed her lips to her son's downy head, breathing in his new baby smell, memorizing the weight of him. I know. Sister Catherine was already on the phone, calling for a medical helicopter to be ready the moment visibility improved. Savannah heard her talking about premature birth, about complications, about a mother who was still bleeding too much. Am I dying? Savannah asked Sister Mary quietly. The nun's expression was kind but honest. Not if I can help it, but you've lost a lot of blood. We need to get you both to a hospital. Outside, the storm raged on. Savannah must have dozed, because when she opened her eyes again, the room was darker and her baby was gone. Panic surged before she saw Sister Mary in the corner, the tiny bundle in her experienced arms, monitoring his breathing. He's okay, Sister Mary said softly. Small, but fighting, like you. Can I? Savannah tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Everything hurt. Sister Mary brought the baby back, settling him carefully against Savannah's chest. He was so light, barely there, but his heartbeat was strong against her skin. Have you thought about a name? Sister Mary asked. Savannah had, actually. Late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she'd made lists of possibilities, testing them out, seeing what fit. But now, looking at her impossibly tiny son, only one name felt right. Noah, she whispered. Noah James. That's a strong name. He'll need it. Savannah's eyes filled. Everything that's coming, the scandal, the genetics, the questions about who his father is and what that makes him, he'll need to be strong. Sister Mary's hand covered hers. He's got your strength, Adrian's stubbornness. He'll be fine. But Savannah wasn't sure she believed it. Dawn broke gray and cold, the storm finally exhausting itself. The helicopter arrived by 7, landing in the monastery's garden and sending up clouds of snow. Paramedics swarmed, professional and efficient, loading both Savannah and Noah onto stretchers despite Savannah's protests that she could walk. Ma'am, you've lost almost 2 pints of blood, the lead paramedic said firmly. You're not walking anywhere. They were loading her into the helicopter when she saw the SUV careening up the mountain road, sliding on ice, moving way too fast for safety. It skidded to a stop near the landing pad, and Adrian burst out before the engine even died. Savannah? He ran toward them, coat flying, face haggard. Are they? Both alive, Sister Catherine said, intercepting him. But they need to get to the hospital, now. Adrian looked past her to where Savannah lay on the stretcher, then to the smaller bundle the paramedics were securing with such careful precision. His face crumpled. Can I? His voice broke. Can I see him? The paramedic hesitated, then nodded. Adrian moved to the tiny stretcher, looking down at Noah with an expression that cycled through wonder and grief, and something so tender it made Savannah's chest ache. He's so small, Adrian whispered. 3 pounds, 2 ounces, the paramedic said. But his vitals are surprisingly good for his gestational age. Adrian reached out, his finger barely brushing Noah's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled reflexively, gripping Adrian's finger with surprising strength. Adrian made a sound like he'd been punched. He's perfect, Adrian said hoarsely. Savannah, he's perfect. I know. They loaded Savannah's stretcher into the helicopter. Adrian tried to climb in after her, but the paramedic stopped him. Family only, sir. I'm her husband. Actually, Helen Cross's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. That marriage is under legal review, which makes you no one. Savannah's head turned so fast she saw stars. Helen stood beside a second vehicle, a town car that must have followed Adrian up the mountain. She wore a black coat and a smile that promised violence. What are you doing here? Adrian's voice went lethal. Protecting what's mine. Helen moved closer, her eyes on Noah's stretcher. That baby is a cross, which means he's subject to family decisions about his care and upbringing. I've already filed for emergency custody, citing the unstable and possibly incestuous nature of his conception. You don't get to touch him. Savannah tried to sit up, but the paramedic held her down. Ma'am, you need to stay calm. She's trying to take my baby. Helen's smile widened. I'm trying to protect an innocent child from a scandal that will destroy his life. The DNA tests are conclusive. You and Adrian share a father. Any child produced from that union needs to be evaluated for genetic abnormalities and placed in appropriate care. We're leaving, Adrian said flatly. He turned to the paramedics. Get them out of here, now! But Helen pulled out her phone, showing a document that made the lead paramedic's face go pale. Court order. The baby is to be remanded to state custody pending investigation into his parentage and potential health complications. That's not legal. Savannah's protest was drowned out by the helicopter's rotors starting up. It's very legal when you have the right judges in your pocket. Helen's expression was triumphant. Noah James Cross will receive excellent care in the hospital. And you, Savannah, will sign away all parental rights before you're discharged. Otherwise, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Trapped my son into an incestuous marriage and deliberately conceived a genetically compromised child. Adrian moved before anyone could stop him, putting himself between Helen and the stretchers. You don't get to do this. I don't care what documents you've forged, what judges you've bought. That's my son. And Savannah is what? Helen challenged. Your wife? Your sister? Both? The headlines will be spectacular, Adrian. Is that really what you want for Emma? For the company? For yourself? For a moment, Adrian hesitated. Savannah saw the calculation in his eyes, weighing the cost, measuring the damage, trying to find a way out that didn't exist. Then he turned to Savannah, and his expression cleared. I don't care, he said simply, about the scandal, the company, any of it. The only thing I care about is them. He climbed into the helicopter before anyone could stop him, sitting beside Savannah's stretcher and taking her hand. Try to throw me out, Mother. See what happens. Helen's face went purple with rage, but the paramedics were already closing the doors. The helicopter lifted off, leaving Helen standing in the snow, isolated and furious. Inside the helicopter, Savannah squeezed Adrian's hand. You just declared war on your own mother. Good. His jaw was set. It's long overdue. They flew toward Atlanta through morning light that turned the snow-covered mountains golden. Savannah kept her eyes on Noah's stretcher, watching the steady rise and fall of his tiny chest, praying to anything listening that he'd survive what was coming. Because Helen Cross didn't make threats she couldn't back up, and the war Adrian just started would consume them all. The hospital was chaos. They separated Savannah from Noah immediately, wheeling him to the NICU while they took her to emergency surgery to stop the bleeding. Adrian tried to follow both, physically torn between the two people he was trying to protect, until a nurse with kind eyes steered him toward Noah. Your wife's in good hands, the nurse said, but that little one needs his daddy right now. Adrian stood outside the NICU, watching through glass as doctors worked on Noah, tubes and monitors and equipment that looked impossibly large next to his impossibly small son. A neonatologist came out after 20 minutes, her expression carefully neutral. Mr. Cross, I'm Dr. Patel. Your son is stable, but we need to run tests. Given his prematurity and She paused delicately. The unique circumstances of his conception, there are potential complications we need to rule out. What kind of complications? Genetic abnormalities, developmental delays, organ function issues. Dr. Patel pulled out a tablet. I need your consent for genetic testing, full workup, and extended NICU care. Whatever he needs. Adrian signed without reading. Just make sure he's okay. We'll do our best. Dr. Patel hesitated. Mr. Cross, there are also some people here to see you. They say they're from social services. Adrian's blood ran cold. Helen sent them. I don't know who sent them, but they have questions about Noah's custody situation. Of course they did. Helen moved fast. She always had. Adrian found the social workers in a consultation room, two women with clipboards and expressions that suggested they'd already made up their minds. Mr. Cross, the older one said, I'm Linda Marks, and this is Jessica Torres. We're here to discuss your son's living situation once he's discharged from the hospital. He'll be living with his mother and me, Adrian said flatly. That's complicated given the ongoing investigation into your marriage. Linda consulted her notes. Our understanding is that you and Miss Hale are biologically related, making the marriage potentially invalid and the child's conception problematic. My relationship with Savannah is none of your business. When it involves a potentially at-risk infant, it becomes our business. Jessica leaned forward. We've been contacted by Helen Cross with concerns about the baby's welfare. She's provided evidence suggesting the marriage was fraudulent and that Miss Hale deliberately conceived knowing the genetic risks. That's a lie. Savannah didn't know about our biological connection until 2 months ago. Can you prove that? Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it. Could he prove it? Really prove it in a way that would hold up in court? Or would it become he said, she said, while Helen's lawyers twisted everything into something ugly? I'm in love with her, Adrian said quietly. That's all the proof I need. Linda's expression softened slightly. Mr. Cross, no one is questioning your feelings, but feelings don't change biology. If you and Miss Hale share a father, any child you have together faces serious health risks. We need to determine if Noah is in immediate danger and whether his mother is capable of making sound decisions about his care. She almost died giving birth to him in the middle of a blizzard, Adrian said, his voice rising. She's capable of anything. Before either social worker could respond, the door burst open. Damien stood there, suit rumpled, expression wild, holding a folder that he threw onto the table between them. You want proof? Damien said. Here's your proof. DNA results proving that while Savannah and Adrian share a father, their genetic markers don't carry the common mutations associated with consanguinity risks. Their child has the same likelihood of genetic abnormalities as any other baby born to unrelated parents. Linda picked up the folder, scanning the documents. How did you get these? I had them run 3 days ago, when it became clear my mother was planning something like this. Damien looked at Adrian. I'm trying to make up for being a coward. This is me trying. The social workers exchanged glances. Jessica stood. We'll need to verify these results with independent testing. Fine. Test away. Damien pulled out more papers. While you're at it, here's evidence that Helen Cross bribed the judge who issued the custody order, and recordings of her threatening to harm Savannah if she didn't sign away parental rights, and bank records showing she's been paying people to falsify documents about Savannah's mental state. Linda's eyes widened. This is illegal? Yes. Provable? Absolutely. Damien's smile was sharp. My mother made one critical mistake. She assumed family loyalty was stronger than truth. She was wrong. Adrian stared at his half-brother. Why are you doing this? Because Edward would have wanted me to. Damien's voice went rough. And because that baby in there deserves better than to be a pawn in mother's games. The social workers left with promises to investigate, taking Damien's evidence with them. After they were gone, Adrian turned to his brother, really looked at him for the first time in years. Thank you, Adrian said. Don't thank me yet. Mother's not going to take this lying down. Damien moved to the window, looking out at the hospital parking lot. She's probably already planning her next move. He was right. Helen arrived at the hospital 3 hours later with a team of lawyers, demanding access to Noah, demanding Savannah be declared unfit, demanding everything be buried under enough legal paperwork to choke an elephant. She found Adrian in the waiting room outside the NICU, exhausted and furious and done playing games. You need to sign these, Helen said, shoving documents at him. They transfer Noah's custody to me temporarily while we sort out this mess you've created. I'm not signing anything. Adrian, be reasonable. Reasonable? Adrian stood, and his voice carried enough volume to turn heads throughout the waiting area. You killed my father. You orchestrated an incestuous marriage to create blackmail material. You've tried to steal my son less than 12 hours after he was born. And you want me to be reasonable? Helen's expression went cold. Lower your voice. You're making a scene. Good. Let everyone hear what you've done. What I've done is protect this family for 40 years from people who would destroy us. Helen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. Edward was weak. He couldn't keep his affairs quiet, couldn't resist every sob story, couldn't make the hard choices. So I made them for him. And yes, that included ensuring his bastard daughter didn't tear apart everything I built. By murdering him? By removing a threat? Helen didn't even blink. Edward was going to legitimize her, Adrian, give away 1/3 of our fortune to a music teacher's mistake. I saved your inheritance, saved the company, saved our name. You saved nothing. You just destroyed it in a different way. Behind them, a voice said, This is all being recorded, by the way. They turned. Detective Chen stood there with 2 uniformed officers, her phone held up, recording light blinking red. Helen Cross, Chen said, you're under arrest for the murder of Edward Cross, conspiracy to commit fraud, and about 15 other charges we'll sort out at the station. Helen's face went white, then red. You can't. I have lawyers. You'll need them. Chen nodded to the officers who moved forward with handcuffs. Helen looked at Adrian as they cuffed her, and for just a moment something human flickered in her eyes. I did this for you, she whispered, for our family. We were never your family, Adrian said quietly. We were just assets you managed. They led her away in handcuffs, and Adrian sank back into his chair, shaking. Damien appeared at his side, pressing a cup of terrible hospital coffee into his hands. It's over, Damien said, but they both knew that was a lie. The arrest was just the beginning. The trial would take months, maybe years. The scandal would consume everything. And Savannah, she's awake, a nurse said from the doorway. She's asking for you. Adrian ran. He found Savannah in a recovery room, pale and hooked to IVs, but alive. Her eyes found his immediately. Noah? She asked. Fighting? Stable? Perfect. Adrian took her hand. And Helen's been arrested. Savannah's eyes filled. It's really over? The worst of it, yeah. He pressed his forehead to hers. We've still got the annulment to figure out, the custody arrangements, the genetics results, the media circus. But Helen's not coming after you anymore. What about us? Savannah's voice was small. Adrian, we're siblings. We can't be together. Not really. I know. And it killed him. But we can be parents, partners, family in the ways that matter. Is that enough? Adrian kissed her forehead, her cheeks, everywhere except her mouth. That intimacy felt too much like a line they couldn't cross anymore. It has to be. Savannah closed her eyes, tears tracking down her face. I love you. I need you to know that. Whatever happens, however this ends, I love you. I love you too. Adrian's voice broke. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you and Noah have everything you need, even if I can't give you what you deserve. They sat together in the hospital room, holding hands, mourning a future that died the moment they learned the truth. Outside, dawn broke over Atlanta. Inside the NICU, Noah James Cross fought for every breath. And somewhere in a jail cell, Helen Cross began plotting her revenge, because women like her never went down without taking everyone else with them. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Savannah thought maybe, just maybe, they had a chance of surviving it. Noah spent 43 days in the NICU before the doctors finally cleared him to go home. 43 days of monitors beeping, of alarms that sent Savannah's heart into her throat, of watching her son fight battles no baby should have to face. But he fought. 3 pounds became 4, then 5. His lungs strengthened. His reflexes developed. And when Dr. Patel finally said the word discharge, Savannah cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Adrian was there for every minute of it, every feeding, every setback, every tiny victory. He'd moved a cot into Savannah's hospital room those first 5 days when she couldn't leave her own bed. And even after she was discharged, he showed up at the NICU before dawn and stayed past midnight. Emma came too, pressing her small face against the glass, whispering stories to her baby brother about tea parties he'd join someday. The annulment papers arrived on Noah's 28th day of life. Savannah signed them in a hospital bathroom, crying so hard the ink smeared. Adrian signed them in his lawyer's office, then disappeared for 6 hours. Marcus found him eventually, drunk in his downtown penthouse, staring at his wedding ring like it was a noose. It's the right thing to do, Adrian had said, the words slurring together. Legal, moral, right. All the right things. Then why do you look like someone died? Marcus had asked. Because someone did. The person I could have been if the universe wasn't so goddamn cruel. They stayed married on paper for another week while the lawyers finalized everything. Then a judge who looked exhausted by the whole mess signed the decree, and Savannah Hale became single again, mother to a son whose father she legally couldn't be with. Helen's trial started 3 weeks after Noah came home. The prosecution had built a case that could have sunk a battleship: Viktor Petrov's testimony, the tampered medication, bank records, recordings. Damien testified against his own mother, his voice never wavering even when Helen stared at him with eyes that promised retribution. Savannah didn't attend. She couldn't stomach being in the same room as Helen, couldn't risk the stress affecting her milk supply or her ability to care for Noah. But Adrian went every day, sitting in the gallery, watching the woman who'd raised him get dismantled piece by piece. She's not showing any remorse, Adrian told Savannah one night. He'd come to her apartment, a modest two-bedroom in Decatur that she'd rented with money from Edward's trust. Noah was asleep in his crib, finally gaining weight properly, looking almost like a regular baby instead of a fragile bird. The prosecutor asked if she regretted killing Edward, and she said she regretted not doing it sooner. Savannah looked up from the breast pump she was cleaning. She's insane. She's practical. That's what makes her dangerous. Adrian moved to the crib, looking down at Noah with that expression he got sometimes. Wonder mixed with grief, mixed with love, so fierce it seemed to hurt him. The jury's going to convict. Marcus says it's a slam dunk. Good. Is it? Adrian turned to face her. Because once she's in prison, all of this becomes public record. The media's going to tear into every detail. You, me, Noah, we're going to be headlines. Savannah had thought about this. Late at night when Noah woke crying, when she was too exhausted to think straight, she'd imagined the articles, the comment sections, the way people would look at her son and see only scandal. We'll handle it, she said, more confidently than she felt. How? I don't know yet, but we will. Adrian sat on her worn couch, dropping his head into his hands. He looked destroyed. Expensive suit, wrinkled, tie long gone, dark circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep seemed to fix. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to be your co-parent but not your husband. How to love you but keep my distance. How to look at Noah and not see everything we lost. Savannah set down the pump, moving to sit beside him. Close, but not touching, because touching had become dangerous. One day at a time, I guess. That's all we can do. One day at a time, Adrian repeated, for the rest of our lives. The silence between them ached. The verdict came down on a Tuesday afternoon, guilty on all counts. Helen Cross showed no reaction as the foreman read the list. Murder in the first degree, conspiracy, fraud, witness tampering. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks out, and the courtroom erupted in whispers and camera flashes. Adrian called Savannah from the courthouse steps. It's done. How long do you think she'll get? Life, probably. Maybe without parole if the judge is feeling harsh. Adrian's voice was hollow. My mother's going to die in prison. I'm sorry. And she meant it. Whatever Helen had done, she was still the woman who'd raised Adrian, who'd read him bedtime stories once upon a time, who'd been human before she became a monster. Don't be. She made her choices. A pause. Can I come over? I don't want to be alone right now. Savannah should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries, kept things professional and distant. Instead, she said, yeah, come over. He showed up an hour later with takeout Chinese and a bottle of wine he didn't open. They ate on her living room floor while Noah slept and CNN played the verdict coverage on mute. Someone had leaked the full story. The affair, the secret daughter, the incestuous marriage. Savannah's face flashed across the screen, a photo from her wedding day, looking young and hopeful and completely unprepared for the nightmare ahead. Turn it off, Adrian said quietly. Savannah grabbed the remote, but not before she saw the chyron. Billionaire family scandal, brother and sister unknowingly married. It's everywhere, isn't it? Every channel, every website, every tabloid from here to London. Adrian set down his chopsticks, appetite apparently gone. Marcus says we should make a statement. Something about being victims of Helen's manipulation, about not knowing our connection, about doing what's best for Noah. Will people believe it? Does it matter? The truth is out there. People will think what they want regardless. Savannah pulled her knees to her chest. I keep thinking about Noah, what he's going to face growing up. The questions, the stares, the articles he'll eventually find. We'll teach him he's not defined by how he was conceived, Adrian said firmly. That he's loved, wanted, perfect, exactly as he is. You really believe that? I have to. Adrian looked at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her chest tight. Because the alternative is spending the rest of my life regretting the best thing that ever happened to me. Adrian, I know we can't be together. I know what we had was based on a lie, even if we didn't know it at the time. But that doesn't change how I feel, Savannah. It doesn't make me love you less. Don't, her voice cracked. Please don't make this harder. I'm not trying to. I'm just being honest. He stood abruptly, pacing her small living room like a caged animal. We're supposed to co-parent, be friends, move on with our lives. But how do I move on from you? How do I watch you eventually date someone else, marry someone else, build a life with someone who isn't me? The same way I'll watch you do the same thing. Savannah stood too, facing him. By remembering that what we had was real, even if it can't continue. By loving Noah enough to put his needs above our wants. By being brave enough to let go. Adrian closed his eyes. I don't want to let go. Neither do I. But we have to. He left 20 minutes later, and Savannah cried into Noah's blanket until her throat was raw. This was the right choice, the only choice. But right didn't make it hurt less. The weeks blurred into months. Helen was sentenced to life without parole, and even from prison she tried to file appeals to contest Edward's codicil, to make Savannah's life difficult from behind bars. But Damien had given the prosecutors everything, and every appeal died before it could gain traction. Damien himself had become an unexpected ally. He visited regularly, bringing expensive baby clothes Noah would outgrow in weeks, sitting awkwardly on Savannah's couch making conversation that gradually became less awkward. He was trying, in his own damaged way, to be family. Mother wrote me a letter, Damien said one afternoon while Noah slept in his arms. From prison. 15 pages about how I betrayed her, how I destroyed the family, how I'll regret choosing you over blood. Do you? Savannah asked. Regret it? Damien looked down at Noah, something soft crossing his usually sharp features. Not even a little bit. This kid deserves better than to grow up in Helen Cross's shadow. We all did. Emma visited too, usually with Adrian, but sometimes with her nanny when Adrian was buried in work. She'd appointed herself Noah's official big sister and took the job seriously, reading him board books and singing off-key lullabies that made him smile his gummy smile. When Noah gets bigger, can he come to my tea parties? Emma asked one day. Absolutely, Savannah promised. And when I'm old enough to know better, will someone tell me the truth about why you and Daddy aren't married anymore? The question, delivered with a 4-year-old's blunt innocence, made both Savannah and Adrian freeze. They'd agreed to tell Emma an age-appropriate version, that they'd made a mistake, that sometimes grown-ups realize marriage isn't right, that they'd always love each other but as friends. When you're older, Adrian said carefully, we'll explain everything, but the important part is that we both love you and Noah very much. That never changes. Emma seemed satisfied with this. Okay, can I have a cookie now? The media attention faded eventually, replaced by newer scandals and fresher tragedies. Savannah stopped Googling her own name after she found a Reddit thread debating whether her relationship with Adrian was technically incest since they didn't know they were related. The comments made her feel sick for days. She started therapy. A woman named Dr. Reeves, who specialized in trauma and didn't judge when Savannah admitted she still loved Adrian, still dreamed about the life they could have had. Love doesn't just disappear because circumstances change, Dr. Reeves said. You're allowed to grieve what you lost. But I have Noah. I should be grateful, not sad. You can be both. Human emotions aren't either or. Adrian started therapy too, though it took Marcus threatening to quit before he'd actually go. He told Savannah about it one evening when he came to pick up Noah for a weekend visitation. They'd worked out a custody arrangement that gave Adrian regular time with his son while keeping the household separate. My therapist says I'm using work to avoid processing Helen's betrayal, Adrian said, settling Noah into his carrier. That I'm compartmentalizing my trauma. Are you? Probably, but if I stop compartmentalizing, I have to actually feel things, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Savannah understood. Some days she felt like she was made of compartments, the part that loved Adrian, locked away, the part that grieved their marriage, buried deep, the part that was terrified of Noah's future, pushed down where it couldn't consume her. If she opened all those compartments at once, she'd shatter. 6 months after Helen's sentencing, Patricia showed up at Savannah's apartment unannounced. Savannah hadn't seen her stepmother since before Noah was born, and the sight of her perfectly coiffed hair and designer purse triggered something ugly in Savannah's chest. What do you want? Savannah asked, not inviting her in. Patricia looked older, smaller somehow. To apologize. You're about 9 months too late for that. I know. Patricia's hands twisted her purse strap. I knew who you were, Savannah. Helen told me about Elizabeth and Edward, about you being his daughter. She said if I could get you to marry Adrian, she'd pay off my debts and set me up for life. Savannah's vision went white. You knew. The whole time you knew what you were doing. I told myself it was fine because you didn't know. That ignorance made it less wrong. Patricia's voice shook. But watching the trial, hearing what Helen did to your mother, to Edward, to everyone, I realized I helped her. I was part of the machinery that destroyed you. Get out! Savannah, get out! The scream woke Noah, who started crying. Savannah slammed the door in Patricia's face, then sank to the floor, shaking with rage and grief and a betrayal that felt fresh all over again. Adrian found her there 20 minutes later, called by a neighbor who'd heard the screaming. He took Noah, soothed him back to sleep, then sat beside Savannah on the floor and let her fall apart. She knew, Savannah sobbed against his shoulder. Patricia knew what she was doing to me. She sold me for money. I know. I'm sorry. Adrian's arms tightened around her. I'm so sorry. They sat there for over an hour, holding each other in the way they'd promised themselves they wouldn't. It felt like coming home. It felt like drowning. It felt like everything they couldn't have. When Savannah finally pulled away, her eyes were swollen and her throat raw. We can't keep doing this. Doing what? Leaning on each other, pretending we're just friends when we're clearly not. She stood, putting distance between them. It's not fair to either of us. We need real boundaries. Adrian's face went carefully blank. What kind of boundaries? The kind where you don't come running every time I'm upset, where we stick to pickup and drop-off schedules, where we move on with our lives separately instead of staying stuck in this limbo. Is that what you want? No, Savannah's heart screamed, but her brain knew it was necessary. It's what we need. Adrian left without arguing, and Savannah felt the distance between them stretch into something that might eventually become bearable. The boundaries helped, sort of. They kept conversations focused on Noah, his feeding schedule, his doctor appointments, his emerging personality. Adrian started dating someone from his office, a marketing executive named Claire, who was perfectly nice and looked nothing like Savannah. Savannah tried not to care and failed miserably. She started dating too, eventually. A music teacher named Marcus, different Marcus from the lawyer, who thought Noah was adorable and didn't Google Savannah's scandal-ridden past. They went on 3 dates before Savannah realized she was comparing everything about him to Adrian and called it off. You're not ready, Dr. Reeves said gently. That's okay. When will I be ready? When the grief isn't so fresh. When you can look at Adrian without your heart breaking. When you can imagine a future that doesn't include him. Savannah couldn't imagine that future, didn't want to. Noah's first birthday came with a small party in Savannah's apartment. Adrian, Emma, Damien, Sister Mary, who'd driven down from the monastery, and a couple of friends Savannah had made in her new mom group. Noah smashed cake into his face with gleeful abandon, laughing his belly laugh that made everyone in the room smile. Adrian filmed it all on his phone, and when Noah reached for him with frosting-covered hands, he scooped him up without hesitation, ruining his expensive shirt and not caring even slightly. He's perfect, Sister Mary said to Savannah. Despite everything, you've raised a perfect child. We've raised him, Savannah corrected. Adrian and I. We're doing this together. Are you, though? Sister Mary's eyes were knowing. Because from where I'm standing, you both look like you're doing it alone, just in the same room. The observation stung because it was true. They were co-parenting beautifully, everyone said so, but they were doing it at arm's length, careful never to get too close, never to blur the lines they'd drawn. That night, after everyone left and Noah was asleep, Savannah stood in her kitchen washing dishes and let herself cry. 1 year. They'd survived 1 year of this impossible situation. How many more stretched ahead? 20? 30? A lifetime of loving someone she couldn't have? Raising a child with someone she couldn't be with? Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. Thank you for today. Noah's lucky to have you as his mom. She typed and deleted 5 responses before settling on, he's lucky to have you too. What she wanted to say was, I miss you. I miss us. I miss the future we should have had. But those words stayed locked in her chest where they belonged. The break came on an ordinary Tuesday. Adrian showed up for his usual pickup, but instead of the quick handoff they'd perfected, he stood in her doorway looking like he'd been wrestling with something for a long time. Can we talk? He asked. Actually talk, not just logistics? Savannah's heart hammered. About what? About us. About this impossible situation we're in. About whether we're doing the right thing or just the easiest thing. She should have said no. Should have maintained the boundaries they'd worked so hard to build. Instead, she let him in. Noah was napping, giving them rare privacy. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between them feeling like miles. I've been looking into something, Adrian said. Legal options. Ways for us to be together without it being a scandal. Savannah's breath caught. Adrian, hear me out. There are states where our situation wouldn't be illegal, where the marriage would be recognized as valid since we didn't know about our biological connection when we married. We could move. Start over somewhere people don't know our history. You're talking about running away. I'm talking about having a life together. About Noah growing up with both his parents in the same house. About not spending the next 17 years pretending we're just friends when we both know we're so much more. Savannah wanted it so badly her teeth ached. What about Emma, your company? Everything you've built in Atlanta? Emma comes with us. The company can be managed remotely or handed off to Damien. And what I've built, Adrian's voice broke. What I've built means nothing if I'm miserable. If I'm spending every day loving you from a distance, watching you slip further away, pretending I'm fine with this arrangement when I'm dying inside. People will talk. They'll judge. They'll say terrible things about Noah. Let them. I don't care anymore, Savannah. I'm tired of caring what the world thinks. I just want my family. Savannah closed her eyes, fighting against hope that felt dangerous. What if I say yes, and we try this, and it fails? What if being together ruins everything? What if Noah suffers because we were selfish? What if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what if? Adrian moved closer, taking her hands. I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm saying it might be worth it. Where would we even go? I've been researching. There's a town in New Mexico, small, quiet, 3 hours from Santa Fe. Good schools, low cost of living, no one who gives a damn about Georgia scandals. Adrian pulled out his phone, showing her listings. I found a property, 20 acres, old farmhouse that needs work, mountain views. It's nothing like Atlanta, nothing like the estate, but it could be ours. Savannah looked at the photos, worn wood and wide porches and space that went on forever. It looked like possibility. It looked like a fresh start. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm. But I'm more scared of living without you. Noah's cry from the bedroom interrupted them. Savannah went to get him, lifting her son from his crib, breathing in his baby smell while her mind raced. When she came back to the living room, Adrian was still there, waiting, hope written across his face. I need time to think, Savannah said. How much time? I don't know. This is huge, Adrian. We're talking about uprooting our entire lives on the hope that maybe we can make this work. I know, and I'm not trying to pressure you, but Savannah, he stood, moving close enough that she could feel his warmth. I love you. I've loved you since our wedding night, and I'm going to love you until the day I die. Geography doesn't change that. Scandals don't change that. Biology sure as hell doesn't change that. So whether we're in Atlanta or New Mexico or Mars, that's not going to stop. The only question is whether we're going to build a life around that love or keep running from it. He kissed Noah's forehead, then left, giving Savannah space to process what he'd just offered. She spent that night on her balcony, Noah asleep in her arms, staring at Atlanta's skyline, and trying to imagine leaving it all behind. The city where she'd married Adrian, where she'd discovered the truth, where Noah had been born, and Helen had been sentenced, and her entire life had detonated. Could she really leave it? Start over somewhere no one knew their story? More importantly, did she want to? Sister Mary called the next day, like she always did when Savannah was wrestling with something big. You're thinking about his offer. How did you know he made an offer? Because Adrian Cross is many things, but subtle isn't one of them. And because I saw the way you looked at each other at Noah's party. Sister Mary's voice was gentle. What's holding you back? Fear, guilt, the certainty that we're going to mess this up somehow. Those are valid concerns, but they're not reasons to stay stuck. A pause. Your mother spent 30 years hiding, Savannah. 30 years being afraid of what might happen if she lived openly. She died never knowing what life could have been if she'd been brave enough to choose love over fear. Don't make her mistake. The words hit like a punch. Savannah had spent so much time angry at her mother for lying, for hiding, for making choices that led to this impossible situation. But Elizabeth had been scared, terrified actually, and that fear had poisoned everything. "What if we try and it doesn't work?" Savannah asked. "Then at least you'll know. At least Noah will grow up knowing his parents loved each other enough to try." Sister Mary's voice went soft. "Fear is a terrible reason to make permanent decisions, child. Don't let it steal your chance at happiness." Savannah called Adrian that night. "Tell me more about New Mexico." She heard his sharp intake of breath. "Are you serious?" "I'm considering. That's not the same as agreeing, but tell me about it." So he did. He'd already visited the property, already talked to real estate agents, already researched schools and hospitals, and everything Noah might need. He'd thought of everything, because of course he had. Adrian Cross didn't do anything halfway. "There's a music school in the nearest town," Adrian said. "Small, but they need teachers. And the property has an old barn we could convert into a music room, like your mom's center, but just for you. For Noah, when he's old enough." That detail broke something open in Savannah's chest. "You remembered." "I remember everything about you." She made him wait another week while she wrestled with the decision, made lists of pros and cons that never quite balanced, talked to Dr. Reeves, who asked pointed questions about what Savannah actually wanted versus what she thought she should want, looked at Noah and tried to imagine his future both ways, split between two homes in Atlanta or together with both parents somewhere new. In the end, it was Emma who decided it. The little girl showed up with Adrian for a Saturday visit and announced, "Daddy says we might move to New Mexico, and you'd come too, and we'd all live together. Is that true?" Savannah looked at Adrian, who had the grace to look sheepish. "I might have mentioned it was a possibility." Emma's eyes were huge and hopeful. "I don't want to live in two houses anymore. I want one house with everyone. Please, Savannah, please can we all live together?" And Savannah, looking at this little girl who'd lost one mother already and was begging not to lose another family, felt her last resistance crumble. "Yeah," she said softly. "Yeah, we can do that." Emma shrieked with joy. Adrian's face transformed into something incandescent, and Savannah felt hope crack through her chest like spring breaking through frozen ground. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard days, judgment from people who didn't understand, questions Noah would eventually ask that they'd have to answer honestly. But they'd face it together, as a family, the kind built not on biology or legality, but on choice and love and the stubborn refusal to let circumstances define them. "When do we leave?" Savannah asked. Adrian pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home. "Whenever you're ready." She was ready now. The move happened in stages, like peeling away layers of a life that no longer fit. First went the apartment lease, then the forwarding addresses, then the careful boxing up of everything Savannah and Noah owned, which, compared to Adrian's estate, fit into a single moving truck with room to spare. Emma helped pack, her small hands wrapping Noah's toys in newspaper while she narrated her excitement about their new house. "And I'll have my own room, but it'll be close to Noah's room so I can hear if he cries. And Daddy says there's a creek where we can catch frogs, and Savannah's going to teach music and I can learn piano like my real mom wanted." She stopped abruptly, her face crumpling. "Is it okay that I called you Savannah instead of Mom? I don't want to forget my real mom, but I also want—" Savannah knelt beside her, pulling the little girl close. "You can call me whatever feels right, sweetheart. I'm not trying to replace your mom. I'm just trying to be here for you. Can I call you Savannah at home and Mom when other people ask, so they don't get confused?" The request was so earnest, so carefully considered for a 4-year-old, that Savannah's throat tightened. "That sounds perfect." They left Atlanta on a Wednesday in October, when the Georgia heat finally broke and the leaves were just starting to turn. Adrian drove the SUV with Emma and Noah, while Savannah followed in her ancient Honda that Adrian had wanted to replace but she'd stubbornly kept. Damien stood in the driveway waving them off, having promised to handle the rest of the estate sale and legal loose ends. "Don't be a stranger," Damien had said, hugging Savannah awkwardly. "You're the only family I've got who doesn't hate me." "You're welcome to visit any time," Savannah had told him. "The barn's going to have a guest room eventually." The drive to New Mexico took 3 days. They stopped in Texas at a roadside motel with a pool where Emma and Noah splashed until they were exhausted. Adrian and Savannah got connecting rooms, still maintaining some pretense of boundaries, even though Emma had already announced to the front desk clerk that they were all one family now. Old habits, Adrian said that night, standing in the doorway between their rooms while Noah slept and Emma watched cartoons on low volume. Smart habits, Savannah corrected. We're doing this right, remember? Slow, no rushing. But that night, when a nightmare about Helen woke Savannah at 3 a.m., Adrian heard her through the thin walls. He appeared in her doorway without asking, sat on the edge of her bed, and held her while she shook. They didn't talk about it in the morning. They didn't need to. The property in New Mexico sat at the end of a dirt road that wound through juniper and pinon pine, mountains rising purple in the distance. The house was exactly as Adrian had described: weathered wood, wide porch, windows that needed replacing. The barn listed slightly to one side. The land stretched wild and beautiful in every direction. It's perfect, Savannah breathed. It's a disaster, Adrian said, but he was smiling. But yeah, it's perfect. They moved in with camping equipment and takeout, spending that first night on the porch, watching sunset paint the sky impossible colors. Emma fell asleep in Adrian's lap. Noah dozed against Savannah's shoulder, and for the first time in over a year, Savannah felt something that might have been peace. The work started immediately. Adrian hired contractors to fix the house's worst problems: the roof that leaked, the plumbing that groaned, the electrical that sparked ominously. But he insisted they do some of the renovation themselves, said it would make the place feel like theirs. So Savannah found herself learning to sand floors and paint walls, Noah strapped to her back in a carrier while she worked. Adrian taught Emma to use a child-safe hammer, and together they rebuilt the porch railing, crooked but sturdy. When Damien visited for Thanksgiving, he took one look at Adrian in work boots and paint-stained jeans and laughed until he cried. The mighty billionaire, brought low by manual labor, Damien said. The mighty billionaire is happier than he's been in years, Adrian shot back. How's the penthouse? Empty. Turns out money doesn't keep you warm at night. Damien's smile faded. I'm thinking about selling, moving somewhere smaller, maybe even out here if you'd let me. Adrian and Savannah exchanged glances. There's 30 acres, Savannah said slowly. Plenty of room for another house if you're serious. I'm serious about not wanting to end up like Mother, alone in a cell of my own making. Damien looked at Noah, who was attempting to eat dirt while Emma tried to stop him. You've got something real here. I want a piece of that. They gave him 5 acres on the eastern edge of the property. By spring, he'd started building a small cabin, coming out on weekends to work alongside Adrian, the two brothers slowly rebuilding a relationship that Helen had spent decades poisoning. The music school happened almost by accident. Savannah had been teaching Noah simple songs, clapping rhythms, singing the lullabies her mother once sang to her. A neighbor heard her playing piano through the open windows. They'd found an old upright at an estate sale and hauled it home on Adrian's truck, and asked if Savannah gave lessons. I'm not certified or anything, Savannah had said. Neither is anyone else within 50 miles, the neighbor replied. My daughter needs a teacher, please. One student became 3, then 5, then a waiting list. Adrian converted the barn faster than planned, installing soundproofing and heating, building practice rooms and a small performance space. Savannah named it the Elizabeth Morrison Music Center, hanging her mother's photo in the entrance beside the original composition she'd found at the monastery. She'd be proud, Sister Mary said when she visited for the grand opening. You took her hiding and turned it into sharing. That's healing. The center became Savannah's purpose beyond motherhood. She taught piano and voice to ranch kids and retirees, to children with disabilities who found expression through music, to anyone who wanted to learn. She charged what people could afford, which sometimes meant payment in firewood or fresh eggs, and made enough to feel useful without needing Edward's money. Though that money sat in trust for Noah, growing quietly, waiting for whatever he'd need it for someday. Adrian worked remotely most days, converting one of the house's bedrooms into an office where he video-conferenced with executives and reviewed reports. He'd stepped back from day-to-day operations, leaving Marcus and a new CEO to run cross-enterprises while he focused on strategic planning and investment. The company thrived without him hovering, which Adrian found both liberating and mildly insulting. Turns out I wasn't as indispensable as I thought, he said one evening. You were indispensable to the wrong things, Savannah replied. Now you're indispensable to the right ones. They still hadn't addressed their relationship status officially. They lived in the same house, raised the kids together, ate dinner as a family every night. But they maintained separate bedrooms, kept physical affection limited to casual touches, never discussed what they were to each other beyond co-parents and friends. It was Emma who finally forced the issue 6 months after the move. She'd been invited to a school friend's birthday party, and the invitation required RSVP from parents/guardians. "What do I put?" Emma asked Savannah, showing her the form. "You're not my mom, but you're also not just Daddy's friend. What are you?" Savannah looked at Adrian, who'd gone very still. "What do you want me to be?" Savannah asked gently. Emma chewed her lip, thinking hard. "I want you to be my mom, the kind who stays. Is that okay?" "It's more than okay, sweetheart. Then can you and Daddy get married again? For real this time? So we're a real family?" The question hung in the air like a grenade. Adrian cleared his throat. It's not that simple." "Why not? You love each other. I'm not a baby, I can tell. You look at each other the same way my friend Zoe's parents look at each other, all mushy and gross. And you already lived together when you were married before, so what's the difference?" "The difference is complicated," Savannah said carefully. "Because you're related?" Emma's matter-of-fact delivery made both adults freeze. "I heard Damien talking to Daddy about it. He said you and Daddy have the same birth father, which makes you half-siblings. But that doesn't mean you can't love each other, because love is love and biology is just science." Adrian's laugh came out strangled. "Damien said that? He says lots of things when he thinks I'm not listening." Emma crossed her arms. "So, can you get married or not?" Savannah met Adrian's eyes across the kitchen table. They'd been dancing around this for months, pretending they could maintain the status quo forever, that they could live together platonically while their hearts stayed tangled up in each other. "Can we talk about this later, Em?" Adrian asked. "Adult conversation?" Emma sighed dramatically but agreed, running off to play with Noah. Once she was gone, the silence stretched uncomfortable and heavy. "She's not wrong," Savannah said finally. "About us. About how we feel." "I know. We can't get legally married. Not here, not anywhere that knows our situation. The annulment stands and no court's going to reverse it given the circumstances." "I know that too." Adrian stood, pacing the small kitchen. "But does it matter? The legal piece of paper? It mattered to you once. A lot of things mattered to me once. Then I lost everything and realized what actually matters. You, the kids, this life we're building." He stopped pacing, facing her. "I don't need a marriage license to commit to you, Savannah. I just need you to tell me you want this too." Savannah's hands trembled in her lap. "Of course I want it. I've wanted it since our wedding night when everything was still a lie. But wanting and having are different things. Are they? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing stopping us is fear. Fear is a pretty good reason when we're talking about explaining to Noah someday that his parents are siblings who chose to be together anyway." Adrian pulled out his phone, found something, and showed her the screen. It was an article about consanguinity laws, about genetic counseling, about the difference between biological relation and social taboo. "We've had Noah tested. Dr. Patel confirmed he has no genetic abnormalities beyond what any child might have. The risk we were told about doesn't apply because Edward and Elizabeth weren't closely related themselves. Our shared DNA is minimal." "That's not the point, isn't it? The whole reason this is considered wrong is because of genetic risk and power dynamics. We have neither. We met as strangers, fell in love without knowing our connection, and the only power dynamic is the one where you hold my heart hostage." Adrian's voice went soft. "I'm not asking you to marry me, Savannah. I'm asking you to let me love you openly instead of pretending I don't." Savannah stood, closing the distance between them. "If we do this, if we actually commit to being together, there's no going back. No hiding if people find out. No pretending it's just convenient co-parenting. I don't want to go back. I want to move forward. Emma and Noah will have questions eventually. Hard ones. Then we'll answer them honestly. Tell them love is complicated, that family isn't always conventional, that sometimes the right thing doesn't fit into neat boxes." Savannah looked up at him. This man who'd been her husband, her heartbreak, her co-parent, her best friend, who'd driven across the country to build her a life, who looked at their son like he hung the moon and at Emma like she was made of spun glass, who looked at Savannah like she was worth every scandal, every complication, every impossible choice. "I love you," she said, I'm tired of pretending I don't. Adrian's answering smile could have lit the desert at midnight. Thank God, because I've been dying here. He kissed her, and it felt like their wedding night and their first fight and every moment in between, compressed into something that tasted like coming home. When they finally broke apart, Emma was standing in the doorway with Noah on her hip and a satisfied smirk on her face. Finally, she said, can we have cake now to celebrate? They had cake. They called it an engagement, even though there'd be no legal wedding. They told the kids that love was bigger than rules, that family was about choice, that sometimes the right path wasn't the conventional one. Emma accepted this with the easy adaptability of children. Noah was 2 and accepted everything with equal enthusiasm. And slowly, carefully, Adrian and Savannah stopped hiding. They combined bedrooms, packed away the pretense of separate lives. They held hands in public, kissed in the kitchen, built a life that looked from the outside like any other family's. Some people in town knew their story. News traveled even to rural New Mexico, but most didn't care. The music teacher and the businessman raising kids in the mountains weren't anyone's scandal to worry about. Dr. Reeves, who Savannah still saw via video calls monthly, asked how it felt to stop hiding. Terrifying, Savannah admitted, but also like I can finally breathe properly. Your mother spent her whole life hiding, Dr. Reeves observed. You're choosing differently. That takes courage. It took more than courage. It took daily choices, to be honest, to be present, to answer the hard questions when they came. Like when Emma asked if it was weird that Savannah was technically her Aunt Mom, and Savannah explained that love made families, not blood. Blood just gave you DNA. Or when one of Savannah's older piano students asked point blank if she and Adrian were related, and Savannah said yes, they shared a father, and yes, that was complicated, but no, she didn't regret building a life with him. The student had thought about it, then said, my parents are first cousins. Half the town talks about it. But they've been married 30 years and they're happy, so screw the gossip. Savannah had laughed until she cried. The real test came when Noah turned 3 and started asking questions about families. About why some kids had one mom and one dad while others had 2 moms or 2 dads or lived with grandparents. He was too young for the full truth, but old enough to notice that his family didn't look like Emma's friend Zoe's family, or like the families on his favorite TV shows. Why does Emma call you Savannah, but I call you Mama? Noah asked one morning. Because Emma had a different mama who died before you were born, Savannah explained. I'm here to love her, but I'm not trying to replace her first mama. You can call me whatever feels right. What do I call Daddy? Daddy, usually. Adrian ruffled Noah's hair. Unless I'm in trouble, then Mama calls me Adrian James Cross in a scary voice. Noah giggled, crisis averted for now. But they both knew harder questions were coming. Sister Mary visited that spring, bringing news that the monastery was expanding its music program in Elizabeth Morrison's name. We found more of her compositions in the archives. Beautiful pieces. We'd like to perform them, maybe record an album if you'd permit it. Of course. Savannah showed Sister Mary the converted barn, the students practicing scales, the small stage where they held monthly recitals. This is all because of her music, because she left pieces of herself behind even when she couldn't be herself. She'd be proud, Sister Mary said, and relieved, I think, that you didn't let fear win. That night, Savannah pulled out her mother's letter, the one from the safe deposit box, creased from rereading. Elizabeth's words about Edward, about the hiding, about the danger, felt different now. Less like a warning, more like a cautionary tale about what happened when you let fear make your choices. What are you thinking? Adrian asked, finding her on the porch with the letter in her lap. That my mother wasted 30 years being afraid. That she died having never fought for what she wanted. That she passed that fear on to me like inheritance. Savannah folded the letter carefully. I don't want that to be Noah's story. Or Emma's. I want them to see us choosing love even when it's complicated, fighting for each other even when it's hard. Is that what we're doing? Adrian sat beside her, their shoulders touching in the easy way they'd developed. Fighting? Every day. Against judgment, against fear, against the voice that says we should be ashamed of loving each other. Savannah leaned into him. But we're winning, aren't we? Yeah, we're winning. Damien moved into his finished cabin that summer, bringing furniture and his 3 rescue dogs and a determination to build something good. He started volunteering at Savannah's music center, teaching business classes to teenagers who wanted to pursue creative careers but didn't know how to make it sustainable. I wasted 20 years in Helen's shadow, Damien said one evening over dinner. Making money I didn't need, playing games I didn't care about. This is the first time I've felt useful. You're good with the kids, Savannah observed. Patient. They respect you. Because I'm honest about screwing up. I tell them about the choices I made, the ones I regret, the ones that hurt people. Damien looked at Noah, who was making airplane noises with his green beans. That kid's going to face questions, cruel ones. When he does, I want him to know his uncle's on his side. His uncles, Adrian corrected. Plural. You're not doing this alone. The summer Emma turned 6, she asked the question they'd been dreading. They were swimming in the creek, supervising while Emma and Noah hunted for crawdads, when Emma suddenly said, Zoe's mom asked if you and Savannah were married. I said yes because you live together and love each other. But then her mom got a weird look and asked if you were legally married. I didn't know what that meant. Adrian and Savannah exchanged glances. They'd prepared for this, rehearsed answers, but actually facing it felt different. We were married once, Adrian said carefully, but we had to end that marriage when we found out we were related by blood. So legally, no, we're not married anymore. Emma processed this, her 6-year-old brain working through the implications. But you still love each other. Very much. And you're raising me and Noah together. Yes. Then who cares about legally? Emma said, with the blunt wisdom of children. Zoe's parents are legally married and they fight all the time. You guys are happy. That's better. If only adults could see it that clearly. But not everyone did. When Noah started preschool, there were whispers. A few parents pulled their kids from playdates when they learned about Savannah and Adrian's relationship. One parent tried to get Noah removed from the school entirely, claiming his presence was inappropriate. The school board held a meeting. Adrian and Savannah attended, prepared to defend their family, their choices, their right to exist in peace. The meeting room was packed, parents on both sides, teachers, administrators, and half the town apparently. The board chair, a weathered rancher named Tom who'd been sending his granddaughter to Savannah's music lessons, called the meeting to order. We're here to discuss whether Noah Cross poses any danger or inappropriate influence on our students. The floor is open for comment. The parent who'd started this stood up, red-faced and righteous. These people are living in sin. They're related by blood, and they're flaunting their immoral relationship in front of our children. How are we supposed to explain? Explain what? Tom interrupted. That sometimes families look different? That love is complicated? Your kids already know that, Marie. Half of them come from divorced homes, blended families, same-sex parents. Noah Cross is a 3-year-old boy who likes dinosaurs and songs. He's not a threat to anyone. But the parents are good people who got dealt a bad hand and are making the best of it. Tom looked directly at Savannah and Adrian. They run a music program that's brought culture to this town. They volunteer at the food bank. They pay their taxes and keep to themselves. Unless you can show me actual harm they've caused, I don't see what business it is of ours. Other parents spoke up, some condemning, some defending. One of Savannah's students, a teenage girl, stood and said, Miss Savannah taught me that making music means being brave enough to share something personal with the world. She practices what she teaches. If that's wrong, I don't want to be right. When the vote came, the board ruled in favor of Noah staying enrolled. It wasn't unanimous. 3 members voted to remove him, but it was enough. As they left the meeting, an older woman stopped them in the parking lot. My husband was my first cousin, she said quietly. We were married 52 years before he passed. People talked, but we didn't let it stop us from building a good life. Don't let them stop you either. Small victories. They added up. The years folded into each other the way years do when you're building a life instead of just surviving one. Noah grew tall and curious, asking questions about everything, showing an early aptitude for music that made Savannah's heart swell. Emma flourished in school, her confidence growing as she learned she could talk about her aunt mom without shame, that different was okay. Adrian scaled back his work further, eventually selling his majority stake in Cross Enterprises to focus on smaller investments and local projects. He helped fund a community center in town, supported Savannah's expansion of the music school, spent his days being present instead of profitable. Do you miss it? Savannah asked one evening. They were watching sunset from their porch, Noah asleep against Adrian's chest, Emma reading beside them. The Empire Building? The power? All of it? Not even a little bit. Adrian pressed a kiss to Noah's head. Life made me somebody. Turns out, it just made me miserable. This makes me somebody. When Noah was 5, he came home from kindergarten crying because another kid said his parents were wrong and gross. Savannah held him while he sobbed, then sat him down for the conversation they'd always known was coming. Some people think it's wrong for your daddy and me to be together because we share a biological father, Savannah explained. Do you know what that means? Noah shook his head, hiccuping. It means part of our DNA. That's the stuff inside you that decides if you have blue eyes or brown hair came from the same person. A man named Edward who died before you were born. Savannah kept her voice gentle. Usually people who share DNA like that don't fall in love. But your daddy and I didn't know we shared DNA when we met. We fell in love first, then found out later. Did you stop loving each other when you found out? Noah asked. No, we tried to, but we couldn't. Love doesn't work that way. So why do people think it's wrong? Adrian fielded this one. Because sometimes people are afraid of things that are different. It's easier to say something is wrong than to understand that the world is complicated. But here's the important part, buddy. The reason we're together isn't about DNA. It's about choice. We choose every day to be a family. We choose to love each other, and you and Emma. That choice is what matters. Noah thought about this seriously. Do I have problems because your DNA is the same? No, Savannah said firmly. We had doctors check very carefully. You're perfectly healthy. The only problem you have is being too smart for your own good sometimes. Noah's smile was watery, but real. Can I tell kids at school that my family is different, but not bad? You can tell them whatever you want. And if anyone's mean about it, you tell a teacher and then you tell us. What will you do? Whatever we need to, Adrian said. We protect our own. The conversation happened in variations over the years. Each time Noah or Emma faced questions or cruelty, Adrian and Savannah answered honestly, teaching their children that different didn't mean wrong, that love was worth defending, that family was something you built, not something biology dictated. It wasn't always easy. There were hard days when Savannah doubted everything, when the weight of judgment felt too heavy. Days when Adrian's phone rang with reporters trying to dredge up the scandal, when internet trolls found their story and made it viral again for 15 cruel minutes. But there were more good days. Days when Emma performed a piano recital flawlessly and took her bows with Savannah's hand in hers. Days when Noah came home excited about science class, already understanding genetics better than most adults because his parents had explained it honestly. Days when Damien showed up with pizza and stories about his latest rescue dog, his cabin slowly becoming a home. Days when Adrian pulled Savannah close on their porch and said, "We made it," and meant it. Sister Mary visited on Noah's 7th birthday, bringing a gift that made Savannah's throat tight. The original recordings of Elizabeth Morrison's compositions, professionally mastered and published under the monastery's label. Your mother's music is being played all over the country now, Sister Mary said. She's finally being heard. Savannah put on the album, listening to her mother's piano fill their home. Noah and Emma stopped their playing to listen, drawn by the beauty of it. Adrian stood behind Savannah, his arms wrapped around her waist, and they swayed slightly to Elizabeth's melody. She'd be proud of you, Adrian murmured, of what you've built here. I think she'd be relieved, Savannah said, that I didn't hide like she did, that I chose differently. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Savannah pulled out her mother's letter one last time. She'd kept it all these years, rereading it when she needed perspective. But now, standing on the other side of fear, having built a life her mother never got to have, Savannah realized she didn't need it anymore. She took the letter to the fireplace, hesitated for only a moment, then let it burn. Not out of anger, but out of release. Her mother's fear had shaped Savannah's early life, but it didn't have to define her future. Adrian found her watching the ashes curl and blacken. What was that? The past, Savannah said simply. I don't need to carry it anymore. They stood together in the firelight, and Savannah thought about all the choices that had led here. The arranged marriage that became real, the devastating truth that should have destroyed them, the decision to fight for love anyway. None of it was conventional. None of it was easy. But all of it was worth it. The Music Center expanded into a full program, drawing students from 3 counties. Emma decided she wanted to be a teacher like Savannah, practicing patience with her younger students. Noah showed signs of perfect pitch, hearing music in everything. Damien found peace in his cabin and his dogs, rebuilding himself into someone who could look in the mirror without flinching. And Adrian, who'd been raised to value money and power and image above all else, learned that the only empire worth building was the one around his kitchen table, the one measured in laughter and music and the feeling of Savannah's hand in his, the one that existed not because biology demanded it, but because love chose it. 10 years after they moved to New Mexico, a journalist found them. Young, ambitious, probably thinking this would be her breakout story about the scandal that refused to die. She showed up at the music center with cameras and questions and an angle that probably involved the words shocking and controversial. Savannah could have refused the interview, should have, probably, but she was tired of hiding, tired of letting other people control their narrative. So she sat down with the journalist, her name was Rebecca, and told her everything. About the arranged marriage and the wedding night that changed everything. About the devastating discovery in the monastery and Helen's arrest. About choosing love over convention. About building a life that didn't fit into neat boxes. About raising children who understood that family was complicated and that was okay. "Aren't you worried about what people will think?" Rebecca asked. "I spent years worried about that," Savannah said. "It almost destroyed me. Now I'm more worried about teaching my kids to be honest, to be brave, to choose love even when it's hard. If people judge us for that, it says more about them than it does about us." "What do you say to people who think your relationship is wrong?" Savannah looked out the window to where Adrian was teaching Noah to throw a baseball, both of them laughing as the ball went wild. Emma sat on the porch reading, occasionally calling out encouragement or mockery in equal measure. Their family, imperfect and unconventional and absolutely real. "I say that wrong is relative," Savannah answered. "Wrong is lying to people you love. Wrong is letting fear make your choices. Wrong is building an empire on corruption like Helen Cross did. What Adrian and I have, what we've built here, that's not wrong. It's just different. And different is okay." The article came out 3 months later, not in the tabloid Rebecca's editor probably wanted, but in a respected magazine's feature on unconventional families. It was fair, balanced, honest. It told their story without sensationalizing it, showed their normal life without pretending it wasn't complicated. The response was mixed, supportive messages and hate mail in equal measure. But mostly, people just moved on to the next story, the next scandal, the next thing to judge. And Savannah realized that was the greatest freedom of all, being boring enough that people stopped caring. On their 10th anniversary of leaving Atlanta, Adrian took Savannah to the property line where the mountains met the sky. They'd hiked up together, leaving the kids with Damien, stealing rare time alone. "I keep thinking I should give you something," Adrian said. "A ring, a ceremony, something to mark what we are to each other. But we can't legally marry, and I don't know what else to offer." Savannah took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "You've given me everything that matters. A home, a family, the courage to choose love over fear. That's more than any ceremony could give me. Still, I want you to have something." Adrian pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver band engraved with coordinates. "What is this?" Savannah asked. "The exact location of where we're standing. The spot where I realized I'd follow you anywhere, build you anything, fight anyone who tried to take you from me." Adrian slipped the ring onto her right hand. Not the wedding finger, but close enough. "We can't have a legal marriage, but we can have this. Our promise. Our choice." Savannah kissed him as the sun set over their impossible, beautiful, hard-won life. And she thought about Elizabeth Morrison, who'd hidden her love until she died. About Helen Cross, who'd destroyed lives to protect an image. About all the people who let fear and convention dictate their choices. They'd chosen differently, and that choice, that daily deliberate choice to love each other despite everything, was worth more than any legal document or social approval. Because at the end of the day, family wasn't about biology. It wasn't about perfect stories or conventional paths. It was about the people who chose to stay when life got complicated, who fought for each other when the world said they shouldn't, who built something real out of broken pieces and called it home. Savannah looked at the ring on her hand, at Adrian beside her, at the mountains that stretched endlessly around them. They'd survived Helen's schemes and society's judgment and their own fear. They'd built a life that shouldn't exist but did anyway, stubbornly, beautifully, imperfectly real. And standing there on the mountain with Adrian's hand in hers and their chosen family waiting below, Savannah finally understood what her mother never had the courage to learn. That love was worth the fight, that truth was worth the cost, that sometimes the right path was the one nobody else understood. They walked back down the mountain as stars began to appear, ready to face whatever came next. Together. Always together. Not because biology bound them, but because love chose to stay.